the Inner Talk podcast. We'll no topic is off limits. Now here's your host, my daddy, and Void of Soul. Thank you for coming to the Inner Talk podcast. Boom, shalak, boom.
In 3, 2, 1. Boom, shalak, boom. My name is Ryan Wester. This is Neander Talk Podcast. Welcome again, but for everybody's first time, at least on this episode, Mitchell Thompson.
How you doing, my man?
Good. How are you?
It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here again. Huh?
right, yeah.
All right. For all those that don't know, I had him on last week, 2 weeks ago, and I had audio issues. Nothing recorded except for the video. No audio.
It's all good.
He was kind enough to come back and basically talk about your new book, because you do have multiple books. What's the newest one? Willie and Abel or Healthy?
Yeah, I wrote Willie and Abel during the Chron's experience, technically.
All right, well, we're talking about your second book, really. The Healthy Made Easy, a how-to guide on sustaining healthier eating habits. Why did you write this book? There's a million health books out there. Why did you write this one, and why should we read it?
Well, again, I appreciate you having me on the podcast again. But yeah, when it came down to the first couple books I wrote, it was more out of just straight interest and intrigue. But this book was more of a consolidation of all the conversation I've had with my clients. Like, I've had a plethora of conversations with my clients. I'm a personal trainer, health consultant, health professional. And anytime I sit down with a client and do a consultation with them, I explain a bunch of baseline health principles. When I'm training a client in the gym, I explain a bunch of baseline health principles. And I explained enough things over and over again that I figured, what better way to consolidate this information than to just write a book about it?
An FAQ.
Right,
if you will.
Legit, frequently asked questions for sure.
There you go, that's cool. Now, you are also on here for your God damn, what's that word? Documentary.
Yeah.
You guys, I've been sober for 20 days, believe it or not. California sober. So yes, your God damn. I want to say documentarian because that's what I've discussed last time. You are a documentarian.
At this point
for
now.
A documentary.
Yep.
On your amazing journey, which I'm still amazed. I know it was only a couple weeks ago, but still, it's just crazy knowing what your journey is from being a health and fitness, 190-something pound dude, getting Chron's, and then dropping to 150-something in 30 days.
Less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days with like 3% body fat.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're back to 190 pounds on no medicine.
Yep.
That's the gist of that documentary.
And you were able to see and if anybody that watches it, they'll be able to see the state of debilitation I was in, meaning they can see how sickly I got, how much weight I lost. But for you to see that, and that essentially be your first introduction to me, and then for me to come onto the podcast and you to see a completely different person, for me, that's the proof in the pudding, to see that natural reaction of like, damn, dude, you look like you were dying. And
you freaked me out.
Right.
I had no, like I say, you're really intense in the documentary. Like, you're super intense, super down. I struggled with depression for a little bit, really hard. I was in a dark time in my life about 5.5 years ago or so. And seeing those expressions on your face in that documentary reminded me of a lot of myself when I was going through that time. Just, it's written all over people when you're going through some wild shit like that. And when I first was having you on, before meeting you, I was a little nervous. I was like,
this dude's fucking intense.
This dude's intense. Is he going to want to like fight me if I say the wrong thing? Like, you know what I mean? Then you came in and you're super smiles and you're shredded. You're got great hair.
Appreciate it.
Good smile. You're loud, projective, happy. It's like, oh, this is not the dude I was expecting.
Well, when you're debilitated that bad and you're sub 40 pounds within 30 days of your original weight, and you're experiencing a certain level of pain that unless somebody described to me what Chron's pain really felt like, I would have never believed them. But I was experiencing so much pain just in the interview process during that documentary, during the creation of the documentary, where, I mean, to be able to smile through pain is something I try to teach my clients. Like, I try to teach them adversity is the greatest teacher. Overcoming challenges is what life's all about. But I'm experiencing the worst pain of my life, and it's easier said than done. And I would like to almost have how depressive the state I seem to be in be a stark contrast to what, again, like what you said, what I am currently experiencing. And that had everything to do with lifestyle change. And like you said, not depending on any medicine. Because I didn't depend on antibiotics. I took a little bit of antibiotics out of the hospital. I didn't take any pain pills, nothing.
Yeah.
And I was never like a Tylenol guy or like a Advil guy anyway. So I think it was a little easier for me to accept that, no, I'm just going to raw dog this. I'm going to do this straight. However my body is naturally going to respond to the symptoms of Crohn's, I'm going to let this wave ride out. And depending on how true my hypothesis was going into the actual curing of the symptoms, I'm going to know how true it actually is.
What exactly is Crohn's for all of us that don't know? Like like in layman's terms, what exactly is it?
So Crohn's disease is an inflammatory bowel disorder. Your intestines, so if you think about your mouth all the way down to your anus, it's a giant food tube essentially.
Right.
So food will come into the mouth, it'll go down the esophagus, process in the stomach. From the stomach, it'll go into what's known as the lower intestine, which is your intestine is split into three parts. You have your small intestine split into three parts, and it'll go through all three stages of the small intestines, and then it'll go into the large intestine, which is essentially your colon. When the food goes through your colon, it'll then eventually come out your anus as poop. So that whole process is very similar to...
It's a hell of a water slide.
It's very similar, though, to a plumbing system. Like if you think of a plumbing system.
Yeah.
And so when that whole system gets inflamed, it's generally known as inflammatory bowel disease, inflammatory bowel syndrome. And Crohn's is a very specific form of inflammatory bowel disease.
Okay, is a certain section that's getting inflamed?
200 IQ. That's the main distinction between Crohn's and other forms of IBD, like even ulcerative colitis. That's a form of IBD. You could even have general IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. And Crohn's in particular, I'll even show you in the book. If we look, because I have a chapter on digestion, if we look, you can see how your small intestine is this big ass rope looking thing that ends up connecting into the large intestine. So right at the beginning of that small intestine going into the colon, going into the large intestine, that's known as your ileocecal valve. Ileum is just that small part. Cecum is that long first part of your colon. So ileocecal, it's a valve between the two. Sounds smart, but when you break it down like that, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So Crohn's is an inflammatory response, a chronic inflammatory response, namely in that ileocecal junction, in that ileocecal valve. And because I was having severe pain, that all the symptoms essentially were geared towards that specific area being targeted, because they thought I had appendicitis at first. And if you look, the appendix is that little vestigial organ at the very bottom of your colon.
Okay.
My pain was right here. So when I told them and I was diagnosing where my symptoms were, they thought I had appendicitis.
It's all in the same, like the pain. Is it a big rate, like you can't pinpoint exactly where it is? It's just a big pain?
At first, I really couldn't. It was just like this area, lower abdomen.
Uh-huh.
But as I learned more about Crohn's, as I learned that it was specifically that area, I was able to identify how long certain foods took to process, because once it got to that ileocecal valve, I started having an allergic reaction, namely all that chronic pain.
It's an allergic reaction to food?
Well,
you think?
You heard the doctors. In the documentary... What I did in the documentary is I covered my entire journey from when I got diagnosed to when I essentially was able to fully recover. And it was about a 4-month process. And in the documentary, you'll see how I went to certain GI specialists, and these GI specialists were essentially telling me the only way to heal myself was through medication. And I tried to pick their brain as somebody who had written a book already about health and nutrition. I had an understanding that food is an implicating factor in terms of inflammation fundamentally. And so when I was picking their brain about it, you heard what they said. They said, food has nothing to do with it. Foods aren't inflammatory. This is something that is only able to be remedied through medication.
That's so wild to me, because it just seems like that's common sense to know that whatever you fuel your body needs fuel. We fuel it with food. Like, don't you understand the difference between jet engine fuel and regular 87?
Yeah, I'm not gonna put diesel with
a Honda Civic
into my Honda Civic. Literally, it's
right.
like, and so we're just in a time, in a day and age right now where, like, if we wanted to even go conspiracy theory type shit,
Bring it on.
if we talk about like the military industrial complex, right?
Never heard of it.
Right. You've got essentially politicians, private sector, and you've got lobbyists, right? So you've got this trifecta of corrupt people keeping their profits in line at the expense of literally everybody else. Mm-hmm. So you can think about a big food, big pharma industrial complex, if you will, where you have big food, we can say Nestle, Coke, all these big name companies who have interests to keep people consuming their product. Their product is heavy carbs, heavy sugar. So they essentially pay the pharmaceutical industry, or they pay the medical industry, like medical schools, medical organizations like the American Heart Association, the American Medical Association. We'll get into that history in a little bit. But you'll have these organizations that are funded
by Nestle and Coke.
By Nestle and Coke, and they'll fund the studies. So
Right.
these doctors will then have the justification to write off the validity of the studies, to then have the pharmaceutical companies create medicine to counteract any of the negative effects that were discovered during those studies. So you'll have big food poisoning people. The doctors say, well, you're poisoned, you need medicine. So they'll then tell Big Pharma to give them medicine, and then Big Pharma recontributes back into the big food with the lobbying and all the stuff they do to keep that trash food on process.
But they weren't telling you you're being poisoned. They're
No.
just telling you need the medicine.
They were saying food isn't even poisonous. That's what got me, is they were saying food is not a measured variable that you should worry about in terms of how your body reacts from an inflammatory standpoint.
So would you be speculating here or suggesting that perhaps these Nestle, Coke type big food, they're funding these doctors, and when they go to health school, when they go to medical school, they're purposefully not being taught about real health and common sense health, basically?
It's not even that it's real health. They're being taught about real health. They're being taught about the real implications of medicine on the body.
Okay, I mean...
They're not taught about the dietary implications.
That's what I mean.
100%. But
diets and shit.
But me even justifying it for them is how they justify it for themselves. They justify it as, we were taught the real health. I know how mitochondria works. I know how certain mechanisms in the body work. Mm-hmm. But they only understand how it works with regards to its relationship with medicine. So when they do their continuing education after they've already got their PhD and they have to learn new stuff, everything they're learning has nothing to do with food and nutrition. It has everything to do with new medications.
Okay, so then I guess why I kind of struggle with that, and why I struggled with your doctors that were telling you we're ignoring the nutritional aspect of everything, is their oath. Their first thing is do no harm.
The Hippocratic Oath.
And it just seems, are they just being willfully ignorant? Like, why are they not even, it just, like I said, it seems common sense to think. I mean, everybody says to them, everybody at one point in their life has gone out to dinner and been like, you know what, I want to eat healthy, I'm going to get a salad.
Right.
So they've thought about that. Can they not put two and two together?
They do. It's the severity in which that variable is a factor. And in their mind, if 100% of being healthy is, if you're sick and 100% of getting healthy, 80% of that getting healthy is medication. In their mind, the other 20% doesn't even make up the food. Only maybe 1 to 5% makes up their idea of how food implicates your overall health. And so to answer your question, it's least about willful ignorance. It's more so about they're so busy and they've already essentially gotten to the finish line that they're lazy, and they're misguided with regards to the only people that are going to try to help them further educate themselves with regards to keeping up to date on their knowledge after graduating. And so the people that are educating them are all medical people. They're all medical representatives trying to get them to only think about medicine. So they don't have enough real estate in their brain to think about the food. So when I bring that up, they're literally not prepared to have that conversation because they've never really thought about it.
Do you think they're thinking about it now?
Well, I hope they've seen the documentary, but
Have you sent them the documentary, these doctors?
So I sent the GI specialist one, the lady doctor. Her head secretary is the mother of a kid I went to high school with, and I sent him it, and I said, bro, show this to your mom. Tell me what you think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did
That's
you
the
hear
only thing I
back?
did. Nah, not yet. I wasn't that close to the dude, so he probably didn't even show her. But I really did want to not only go back, reschedule a consultation or reschedule a visit with these doctors, but I wanted to send them the proof in the pudding of their ignorance documented on camera. But that all of that sort of vibe that I was kind of approaching in terms of that sort of vengeance feeling, at the end of the day,
get out of here.
I don't think it would do anything for them. I don't think they would change their mind whatsoever. I think they would still. You heard the one GI specialist too say, we have decades of research proving that food has nothing to do with your intestines. Essentially,
they would just say this is anecdotal.
This is anecdotal. You're a unique case. We can't mass produce your anecdotal experience.
So you're doing your part in putting this out there. I was gonna say, what can you do? Because I feel like this needs to get out there. But I guess you're doing what you can do to get it out there. You're doing these podcasts. Mm-hmm. You're writing a book. You did a documentary. Do you see? Are you hopeful that this message can get? Because people hear this message all the time about you are what you eat. Mm-hmm. But how do you actually implement it into society? Like, you have to get the doctors on board.
Right.
So do you have any kind of strategy or hopes of doing anything like that? Or is this hoping, are you just trying to do individual people that have Crohn's to fight it? Maybe, hey, try this, it worked. Or, are you trying to make a change?
Right. Yeah. I think you can't change the world unless you change yourself, right? Old cliche anecdote. You can't fill someone else's cup unless you filled your own, all these concepts. I really think you're able to make big change by starting with the individual. So first and foremost, it is geared towards the individual who has Crohn's, who has IBD, who may not have heard this potential outlet for remedying their disease. Mm-hmm. And so that in and of itself was the intention, essentially, at the bare minimum. But ultimately, it shows the overall implication of just what changing your diet and your lifestyle can look like. And I was already working out and doing what I thought was a healthy lifestyle, but the one thing I wasn't harping on was my nutrition. And I tell everybody, if you're going into the gym, it's a distribution of essentially 80% of getting healthy is going to be the food that you consume, and the other 20% is going to be essentially the exercise that you embark on.
We like to think it's the opposite.
100%. And I was in that boat because I used to think, especially because of my natural genetics and my physique, that I was able to eat whatever I wanted, not gain the bad type of weight, and still perform to an exceptional degree. And I thought, well, because I'm doing this all physically, I can eat whatever I want. And I, like you said, I had an inverse reciprocation of that. But with the Crohn's in particular, and the documentary and the message it's given, I've already had people reach out to me. I've had I've had probably 50 people just since it's been released. Like, I've had multiple days where I'm getting 3, 4, 5 messages from people. And a lot of it, I think, is because I posted it on a subreddit forum where it was about essentially just keto. And I think a lot of the traction, because it got some traction on that subreddit, a lot of that traction then transferred over to my social media and the YouTube itself. And I've had plenty of people say, I never knew that diet really had something to do with it. I had, again, multiple people, but
it makes sense. Do people eventually go, but it makes sense once I think about it?
Well, this one lady flat out told me, I would have never felt reassured in how gaslit these doctors made me feel when they said the exact same thing to me that I heard them say to you.
Oh, wow.
And the way that she, again, extrapolated on that feedback was, thank you for putting this out because it essentially reassured my sanity. And I'm just like, if that can do that for one person, I've already done my job.
Okay.
But the fact that I've had multiple people with IBD or Crohn's, or people that have said, I'm sending this to my brother, I'm sending this to my mom, I'm sending this to my friend, at minimum, it gives them the opportunity to cross-reference whatever those doctors told them with another outlet that could be a potential success route for them.
I hope the word spreads like wildfire, and and it can be used towards not just Crohn's, but anything. Like, you're just general wellness, right?
So, and that's what I talk about in the book. And
I need you to help me get healthy. I told you, I've been texting you.
You texted, we texted a few times back and forth.
Yeah, I'm waiting on you to hear. My last text to you was like, I need to get a consultation.
Yep, we're going to do a virtual consultation for sure.
We'll do it right now.
We could bust this out. But the main thing would be in realizing, why are certain foods bad? Why would this documentary be able to help somebody even if they don't have IBD or Crohn's? What is actually going on behind the scenes? And it has to do ultimately with metabolism and metabolic dysfunction. And metabolic dysfunction, again, just metabolism in dysfunction, is essentially how we produce energy. And most people, the studies show, 90 to 94% of Americans have some form of metabolic dysfunction. And so if someone can see, though I don't have Crohn's, I could get healthier, get on the healthy, lose healthy weight or gain healthy weight respective to my goals based off of changing my lifestyle. And if they don't know how to change their lifestyle, that's where Healthy Made Easy comes in to give them the bare minimum. And Healthy Made Easy is nowhere near as strict as what my shit was, because I had to go on a carnivore diet.
I want to do it. I'm just skeptical.
Skeptical of what?
That I don't really need it because I feel kind of healthy.
So let me ask you this:
I eat like shit, I drink a lot.
So let me ask you this:
do what I want.
If I took this crystal or any rock and I had a faucet dripping, the initial drips on the faucet are nearly ineffective, correct?
Yeah, they'd probably just make it look pretty.
Right, crystallize a little bit. But think about it: if we had a rock just sitting right here,
yeah,
and I had just a faucet dripping water, just one drop at a time.
Yeah.
Do you think over time that dripping faucet is going to be effective in terms of eroding that rock, or do you think
it's going to smooth it out after a while, right?
Not only will it smooth it out, it'll deteriorate and destroy the rock. That's erosion, right? That's basic erosion principles.
Right.
Yeah. So
it would take a very, very long time.
Okay. So here's what I talk about.
But I'm no rock.
100%. But the principle of it is one of, and I say it in the book, dripping water hollows stone through persistence.
All right, Bruce Lee.
Right. And so what does that mean, though? Dripping water can hollow out this stone if it's persistently dripping on it. So all I use that as an example in the book.
I'm dripping Doritos and whiskey down my rock hard rock.
And what'll happen over time is you'll be fine. It'll just be a small little water droplet here and there. And you're not feeling anything. But one day, like with me and Crohn's, something could happen that hollows out the rock completely and is the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
And so when you say, I mean, bro, I'm healthy. You're like, I don't have to.
I don't think I'm healthy. I mean, I can't go
healthy
run.
Healthy enough.
But, I'm all right.
Right. And that feeling, though,
I go to work.
That complacency because you're good enough is one that leads the majority of people to get injured, get debilitated with a disease of some kind, whether it's type 2 diabetes, which is on the rise, whether it's Alzheimer's dementia, whether it's chronic physical ailments like slipped discs, they need knee replacements. By the way, knee replacements are going up 600% in the next 10 years. A whole nother conversation. But what it boils down to is most people think, I'm good enough. I'm healthy enough.
That's what I thought, but I am changing. After our conversation, I do. Look.
I see you drinking the water, my guy. Yes.
It's got little lines on it because my brain... if this didn't have lines on it, I'd fill it up with water every day, and I'd probably drink to there.
Exactly.
I need something.
And it motivates you to know to keep going.
Let me go. No, don't get it twisted. This is day 3 of doing this.
So it's okay.
But every day I've drank this whole fucking thing.
Ryan, look, man, like...
I'm still sober 20 days, something.
So I think that's the biggest issue with people in the 21st century is they don't know how good they can feel.
Yeah, I want to see what you can. I'm going to do this as a test.
And at worst case, if you go back to we'll just call them degenerate habits.
Well, I'm still going to, I'm not
telling you to go square like you called me last time. I'm not telling you to go square. Yeah. But I'm telling you that.
You are a bit of a square.
I'm telling you that.
A square. You got like one rounded edge.
Nice. At bare minimum, you're going to be able to have a cross comparison of 2 different lifestyles, and you'll be able to choose which one is most beneficial for you.
All right, Obi-Wan.
Well, I know, dude, because I was in the position of being the most degenerate and essentially justifying my degeneracy because I was doing good enough. Yeah. And I mean, we can go back to 2015 when I graduated high school.
You're so young and in shape and good looking. You could be a great degenerate right now. But you're throwing it away. You're wasting. You got so much good degeneracy potential.
Right.
You got a few years. Just like be a degenerate for a couple years, then.
But that's my point.
When I was down a little bit.
We talked about it a little last
break
time.
up with your girlfriend.
No, stop on
Run
that.
around.
Stop on that. We alluded to this last time, a little bit about my upbringing. I was a starter point guard for one of the most legendary coaches in high school as a freshman for basketball. And then my sophomore year, having never really played football, I was immediately the starting wide receiver, the only option that they would throw the ball to because we sucked so bad.
Nice.
So I had experienced enough glitz and glam early on in my life that I was able to experience degeneracy. I was able to do it at an early enough age that I got my fill to where once I got out of that, and this is what we're talking about with your experience, once I got out of, we'll just call it knowing what degeneracy lifestyle looks and feels like, I just asked myself, where has that gotten me?
Yeah.
And it got me to be homeless. It got me and my dad living out of motels, sleeping out of family members' living rooms before I finally realized that is where this mindset has gotten me. It's gotten me to a point where I'm 23 in a motel with my dad paying $40 a night because it's the cheapest one we can find.
Damn.
In Aurora, Colorado, during October when it's still snowing and shit. And me and my dad at that time were still kind of reconciling with a lot of childhood sort of traumas, that there was times where we would get into it. I would leave the motel and sleep at a park during October in Aurora, Colorado.
Wow.
Stealing linens from the motel so I can insulate the slide so I'd have a comfortable place to sleep.
Really?
Making sure I have to leave before 7 because if the kids come back, because it's October, kids are in school, I'm not about to even see what that's going to happen, having a grown-ass man sleeping in a kid's school.
Wow.
So I had to look at myself and really see that behavior got me here. And it wasn't until I had this, I'm not even playing, I had the same mindset of, fuck it, let's just see what this mindset does for me.
Yeah.
Let's see what integrity, truth living, accountability, let's see what these things unencumbered by me trying to justify degeneracy, where that could lead me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not too crazy.
I know. I mean, that's where it's like the fact.
I'm still a responsible father.
The fact
when I ain't got them.
But that's where it's like you have no idea how potentially good you could feel based off of never having had an experience to cross-reference.
I remember. I used to feel like that. Like I said, I was a college athlete. You know.
But how did you eat in college?
Oh yeah, it was
exactly
like
shit.
It was the early 2000s.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't pizza and actually my diet was Quick Trip sandwiches. They were 99 cents. The spicy chicken.
Don't even get me started.
The spicy chicken, put it in the microwave on number 4.
I'm talking breakfast croissants from Quick Trip every day, 2 of them. So I feel you.
Yeah, I still eat like that.
But my point
You're going to freak out when we have our consultation and you find out what I'm eating.
We may just do it on here so we
let's
can
do it.
for sure.
I'm not scared.
Yeah, legit though. But more so than anything, the reason why I say you don't have a basis of comparison is because even when you felt your best, you still weren't operating at your best because of how shitty your nutrition was. And that's almost every human in the last 100 years.
I was definitely we were doing 2-a-days. I was sleeping for like a couple hours doing cocaine at the first AM practice.
So it's like we have no idea.
Wild.
And I have plenty of clients that are twice my age that'll tell me, yeah, but what really could, like, will I ever be able to run again? Like, I have a client who has debilitating arthritis and can jog but can't really run. Mm-hmm. And by them having the idea that they'll never be able to run again, almost disincentivizes them from going above and beyond to try to fix their health, because they're almost like, fuck it, what's the point? It's too late.
Right.
I'm in my 50s and 60s. What's the point? And guess what I tell them? Fuck it. You have nothing to lose either. So let's just try this for 30 days. And if you don't like it, go back to your behaviors.
You know what I tell them to do?
What's that?
TRT.
Yeah, there you go. Don't get me started on that.
I'm like, look, I told my dad, I was like, Dad, listen. He's a little overweight. I was like, trust me, get on the TRT. You're going to feel like a kid again. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. You're going to want to work out. You're going to feel great.
I have a client who raised their testosterone 100 milligrams per deciliters. They raised it 100 milligrams per deciliters, which is significant in a month from going on a dietary and lifestyle change.
In a month?
In a month.
All right.
Now, everybody's bodies are infinitely different. I said this last time. I used a big word. I'm going to use it again. It's called genetic heterogeneity. Hetero, multiple, like different, right? Like heterosexual. It's going to be different. Geneity is going to be your genetic, how you pretty much present through your genetics. So variant heterogeneity means we all have different genetics, but we can still reach the same potential of, let's just say, being healthy. And so I can't emphasize it enough. Though I may have had one client that had 100 milligrams per deciliter raise in their testosterone in essentially 30 days, you may only raise it 50. Mm-hmm. You may raise it 300.
But it's going to raise.
It's going to raise. And that's where doctors, if I said that it's going to raise to those doctors, they would say, there's no studies to prove that. And they're kind of right, because we're early on in actually funding and actually discovering the implications of those studies.
What is your trust level of doctors? Where do you see doctors? What kind of doctor would you trust or go see? Like, I'm sure there's some. You're like, look,
sure.
I need eye surgery. I can't have a witch do that. I gotta go.
Literally. So I had, like, my girlfriend's uncle just broke his ankle the other day, and him breaking his ankle was like, yeah, go to an orthopedic surgeon. We need to get you in the hospital. Mm-hmm. It's like, even if you got diagnosed with Crohn's like how I did, go to the hospital. And I'll be honest, my perception on doctors in the medical community hasn't changed much pre and post Crohn's. It's affirmed and, if anything, fanaticized certain presuppositions I had about doctors before even going into it. Like, I never would go to the doctors really, because for me, I was taking care of my health. That didn't necessitate me going to a doctor.
You don't need to go. You're still young and healthy.
But with all my clients, if they still have that, I'll just call it blind trust in the medical community, always go to the doctor. Just don't listen to their words as blind gospel.
Okay. These people with Crohn's that are going to talk to the doctors like you did, but also seeing your documentary, would you suggest that, or is it okay, or in your mind, is it okay if they're doing these medicines but also changing?
Of course.
Because, maybe it is anecdotal. Maybe it is. And you tell somebody, don't do the medicine, just eat apples.
Right. Well, that's the funny thing. I tell them not to eat apples. It's just that's on the cover of the book. With the Crohn's in particular. Apples are good for general people, healthy, made easy, but with Crohn's.
Eat your steak, whatever.
There you go. So exactly how you put it, there isn't any actual 2 + 2 is 4. We know this as a fact, proof in the pudding.
We just know it for you.
We just know it for the individuals who experience it, right? And I'm one of the individuals. There's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of anecdotes of N=1 anecdotes that at this point, if I have 100,000 anecdotes, that's nearly a study. So if you are already on medication, it would be in your best interest to automatically change your diet. So that way, hopefully at some point you can get off the medication.
See what happens.
Because nobody likes being on the medication. The medication is literally an immunosuppressant, meaning it's shutting down your immune system.
Oh, wow. So you get sicker a lot easier?
So now imagine, right. So now imagine we're in COVID era.
Oh my!
And
you mention that on this show.
We're in blank this out era, and then you have a compromised immune system to where you have an increased probability of getting on a ventilator, which means you have an increased probability of just dying. Mm-hmm. The doctors won't even take that as an anecdote to then think, well, maybe decreasing their immune system isn't the best alternative. There's got to be something else out there. But they're stuck on thinking you need to suppress your immune system. It's the only way to remedy these diseases.
And there's no way to counter that. Do they have a way of countering boosting up your immune system because it's getting shocked with this?
Your body has to
just have to deal with it.
And so that's where for me it goes,
well, that's quite the gamble.
And you heard what I asked them on the documentary. I said, why are we suppressing our immune system? What is the medicine doing? She says, it's targeting the inflammation. Okay, it's targeting the inflammation. So it's decreasing my inflammation. That's exactly right.
They don't ask why is it being inflamed?
And so when I ask that, they go, I don't think food has anything to do with it. They'd stop it right there.
They don't have an answer?
They don't have an answer. And as you heard in the documentary,
shouldn't they come up with an answer, even if it's not food, if it's just genetically something some people get it in this certain spot?
Well, technically, yeah, that's what their answer is. Their answer is we don't know why it happens. We just know, we think it's genetics, and we just know it happens to a certain subsect of the population.
Is it genetic?
Everything is genetic and lifestyle. It's nurture and nature.
All right, but are you more genetically predisposed than I am? I eat like shit, and I'm 44, and I'm
200 IQ. That's exactly the questions we should be asking.
Yeah.
I would say yes. Why? Because the certain foods I eat, given my ethnic background, means my ancestors didn't eat certain foods like your ancestors may have. Prime example, I've got a lot of Native American on my dad's side of the family to where...
Hold on, just so you know, 90% of Americans like to say that.
Right. And this is where for us, we have, without the proof through the tribal affiliation, we have enough anecdotal evidence. Like if you even just look at pictures of my great-grandparents, they clearly don't look black, right? And this is my dad's side of the family. And so what ended up happening is...
I don't know who's black or white in your family.
Well, I'm just saying, with regards to if my dad's black and my mom's white...
I didn't even know you were half black last time until you told me.
Oh, okay, nice. Well, being biracial... my mom's side is essentially all Scottish Irish, and my dad's side is going to be technically more black, more African American than anything. But when they took a DNA test, I think he was only 80% technically African American, which means the rest of his DNA substrate is going to be, or his ethnical makeup is going to be what they have thought it has been, which is Native American predisposition. And
Would
again,
you like to see that love story?
well, that's what's funny is
Where that began? Who did,
well, that's where when when we look at our family tree, because I don't know a lot about my family history, but thankfully I have cousins on my dad's cousins essentially who are older that did an ancestry and me sort of DNA thing, and we kind of have this like tree of seeing who's related to what, who's kids of what. And when you see my great grandparents, their hair's not nappy, they've got high raised cheekbones, they just look Native American. And I think my great grandmother had a Native American name, and her parents both had Native American names. So again, without necessarily needing to prove that,
God, my tree's probably so boring.
well, without needing to necessarily
Don't laugh, Charles.
Right.
Just because your tree's got flavor too.
yeah, legit. Without being able to confirm that I have Native American in my ancestry, me and my dad did this deduction ourselves. I like to think of it like this. Native American, because my dad's dad died of colon cancer and my dad's dad's brother died of stomach cancer.
Oh.
Intestinal diseases, right?
Right.
So for me, I'm going, wow, that makes hella sense why I have this genetic predisposition based off knowing my ancestors had this genetic predisposition, but why did they have more of a genetic predisposition than my mom's parents? Because they were white versus my dad's parents being multicultural, we'll say. Mm-hmm. And this is where the doctors would think everything I'm saying is woo-woo because we can't prove this shit.
Can I guess real quick?
Go ahead.
It's because they were American and your other people were Scottish and Irish?
It's because
they were eating because they were eating different shit over there.
That's exactly why. And
they were eating American food. They were eating potatoes.
And so let's think of it more
haggis.
like this. Right, hilarious. Let's think of it more like this. My mom's family came over here, let's say in the 1800s. So they spent 200 years getting used to eating wheat, getting used to eating grains, getting used to eating all this bullshit that's Americanized. Mm-hmm. Whereas my dad's ancestors in the 1800s were still hunting buffalo.
I got you. Oh, yeah.
And so their genetics, they don't have the tolerance built up, which means if there's toxins, which I talk about in this book, I talk about anti-nutrients, which are toxins within certain foods, namely within plant foods, because plants can't run away from you, so plants have to defend themselves somehow. They have defensive chemicals. Right, 100%. With the help of AI.
Yeah.
So
I saw that Mark Wahlberg movie.
That's hilarious. Yeah, what's that movie called?
I don't know.
Where the plants are trying to kill him, though.
The plants are killing him. Right. I forgot, whatever.
It's like one of his...
It's M. Night Shyamalan.
M. Night Shyamalan movie, literally. Yeah. So, without being able to prove this, it only made sense in my mind, which is I have more of a genetic predisposition because of my ethnic heritage, because my ancestors didn't get used to certain foods like other ancestors may have. Mm-hmm. So there's a reason why there's no real Crohn's or intestinal issues on my mom's side, but there are intestinal inflammatory issues on my dad's side. And so when you ask, and this goes back to like whether or not something that would make me sick could make you sick, or something that would make me healthy would make you healthy, it goes back to that genetic heterogeneity. There's infinite variation. And that's where there is no one-stop shop of getting you healthy, which is why in this book, I'm giving you the baseline mathematics that everybody can follow, and at bare minimum will get them to a healthy enough state.
So it seems like a DNA ancestry type thing would be pretty important if you really want to take, there's levels to everything.
Right.
And if you want to get, just get the next couple levels up, check out what your ancestors were.
Yeah, because I have clients
dealing with.
I have clients whose parents are Haitian. I have clients whose parents are Vietnamese, right? And so when I talk to them about changing their food, they're like, okay, I'll cut out the bread, but I'll still eat this like bean and carb infested concoction that's culturally from my culture. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, we have to now know what ingredients you're putting in there, because we can now identify and isolate the ingredients, still have your cultural food, just with less toxins in it. And like the main one for my girlfriend and I, because my girlfriend has celiac, which means she can't eat gluten, and she's Sicilian, like her grandparents are from Sicily, so she's super closely knitted with her cultural background, where
and she can't eat pasta.
She can't eat pasta, so her grandparents do what? They make her gluten-free pasta.
Gross.
It's not gross if you condition your palate to accept it for what it is. It's gross right now because you have a crackhead palate, essentially, like 90% of Americans.
I have a pretty sophisticated palate, sir. I'm a foodie. I enjoy all kinds of food.
Fair enough. But no, realistically, that's what it is. It's desensitizing your palate because all of these trash foods are hyper palatable, meaning they're designed to taste better and they're designed for you to crave it more often.
Right.
Whereas whole foods, natural foods,
they're designed to trick your brain, right?
And that's where
don't Doritos make your brain think you're eating meat?
No, I don't know about that. It's essentially just it's a dopamine thing. It's a dopamine thing.
Okay.
So it's essentially when you're eating that trash food, it hits up your dopamine receptors.
Don't call it trash food. I'm getting insulted here. For
Doritos, trash.
Love
Processed
Doritos.
food, trash. McDonald's, trash. Bread, trash. Pizza, trash.
All bread?
I mean, here's the thing. It's when you understand the mechanism of things, it gives you more nuance to your decisions. So you're saying all bread? It's like, not if you ferment it yourself.
Yeah.
Not if you spend 12 hours making it yourself.
Yeah, come on.
Who's going to do that, though?
I'm going to marry a trad wife.
There you go. There you go. But that's where when you understand the mechanisms behind these things, you don't even need to know the answer. You come to the conclusion of the answer based off of the mathematics underlying the principles. And that's why, again, self-sustained training, that's what separates my training from everybody else's. That's why I wrote the book, is so you can be taught the bare minimum things that will allow you to never need a personal trainer ever again. You'll never need to hire a nutritionist. Which is wild that
that's what you want.
Right, because I don't want to be a personal trainer the rest of my life, and I've already transitioned out of that.
Okay.
So I do more health consulting now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so essentially what we would do is what I do pretty much full time.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Well, the first thing I do.
You want, or
no, I'm cool with that. It's just I usually have like my notes and I got make note of stuff, but we could do a little mock version of it so we can break it down. Yeah. So the first thing I would do is we would go through what your daily food looks like. Walk me through what time. Well, we got to walk through what time you wake up. What time do you usually wake up?
Like get out of bed, or like my brain is up and I just don't want to get out of bed.
Out of bed.
6:15.
Do you got pen and paper on you?
Yeah, I do.
If you do, it'll be easier for me to do this deduction. If you don't, I can do it on my phone. Worst case.
Wait, I don't have a pen either.
It's all right. He's got one.
I have a big pen and paper.
Perfect. Good. Perfect.
Not ready for this.
Perfect. All right. So here's exactly what it looks like.
All right.
So you wake up at what time?
About 6:15.
So you wake up at 6:15, and you're out of bed at 6:15.
Yeah, I'm out of bed at 6:15.
Okay, so you're out of bed at 6:15. Cool.
My alarm goes off at 5:45.
Bet.
My brain usually wakes up before that.
So you're out of bed at 6:15. What's the first thing you do when you get out of bed?
I pee.
Okay, what's the first significant thing you do? Like, how do you start your day? Drink coffee?
I get dressed. I make coffee.
Okay.
I usually, it depends. I either have coffee kind of right away, like probably 6:30, 6:45, or
Okay.
I wait till. No, I usually have it in the morning.
Okay, and we'll talk. And even I already have optimal calibrations I can make for you just with 2 notes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, since we're doing a mock one, I'll interject a little bit so you can know what I'm doing. So you wake up at a certain time. I'm immediately seeing, even if you wake up at 5:45, you're not out of bed till 6:15.
Yeah.
So it's okay. That's 30 minutes of your body being awake, though. So we're at 30 minutes of your body being awake. If you would wait, just so I can write it down, it's at 5:45. If you would wait until 7:15, which is just going to be a 90-minute difference. If you wait till 7:15 to drink your coffee,
I can do that.
Your body will respond in a healthier way when consuming the coffee because your brain needs time to wake up. And when you immediately put the caffeine in it, you're just miswiring your brain, and then you have a crazy crash later on.
Okay.
So it's little things like that when I go through your list, I help you optimize and I calibrate for you what you're already doing for the next best option.
Yeah.
With me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll make coffee. When do you first eat food?
About 9:30. 9:30, 9:45 probably.
Okay. And what do you usually eat?
Either lately I've been getting these giant fucking burritos.
Okay, so like a breakfast
burrito. It's got everything. It's got steak, eggs, hash browns,
and a trash ass tortilla that you're eating with it during breakfast.
A big flour tortilla, hot sauces.
Good
or
Lord.
I have oatmeal with fruit and brown sugar.
Good Lord.
And a chocolate croissant.
Good Lord.
And another coffee with cream and sugar in it.
Good Lord.
I know. I told you. I know it's wild.
But this is what's funny is this is why I would never publicize like an actual consultation with somebody because I have to essentially go, all right, bro, you're a degenerate. Let's fix this.
Yeah, I don't care.
I know you don't, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, there is an explicitness that I have to approach with regards to just being a truth bringer. And I have to bring you the truth of where you're at versus where we're going to be. And so like right now, you're breaking fast with nothing but carbs. And we're going to end up learning that at the end of the day.
I don't know. Sometimes there's meat in that burrito, or sometimes
but it's primarily carbs. Yeah, that's the problem. And even if you had 50 grams of protein and 60 grams of fat and only 40 grams of carbs, you're still eating a high carb meal because there's a lot of carbs in it. So the idea is, and this is, again, it's hard to package all of this in just one conversation. But whenever we're able to go, that's why I told you last time, it usually takes like 2 to 3 consults before we actually get you sustained in a way. You have to learn basic principles that unless you take it as gospel, it has to be explained. And I usually don't ever say things to just be taken as gospel. I like to explain it so you can be sustained in your training, right?
Yeah.
So generally speaking, even if I drew it out for you, if we had a graph, when your blood sugar spikes, your blood sugar will spike naturally. It'll naturally spike up in the morning because your body's essentially saying, we need energy just in case you don't have any.
Okay.
So every morning you wake up, you're automatically going to spike your blood sugar. So without telling you what that means yet, just know when you wake up, blood sugar spiked.
Okay.
The idea is you want to essentially keep that blood sugar low until the end of the day when you spike it again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you
after it naturally spikes?
After it naturally spikes.
Okay.
Otherwise, what'll happen, this is what happens with most people. It'll spike, then it'll spike, then it'll spike, then it'll spike. Why is that?
Because you're constantly eating sugar.
You're constantly eating carbs. Because glucose, blood sugar, glucose is essentially just sugar.
Right.
Does this make sense?
Yeah, I know.
So what you'd want to do is only
eat sugar.
Right. So what you'd only want to do is eat protein and fats during this window, essentially.
Okay.
So you don't re-spike your blood sugar. Then your blood sugar is going to stay relatively low throughout the day, which is normal, until you end up breaking that blood sugar spike later on in the day with a higher dense meal. So what I tell people whenever they're telling me
lunch or dinner,
technically dinner.
Okay.
Yeah, technically dinner. But what I tell people is, especially once we've gone through, like I'm already deducing their behaviors, bro, you're breaking fast during this period with a carb, and you're still eating a carb, and throughout the day you're eating carbs. So we have to nullify this, decrease these down to a baseline. How? By not eating carbs.
By just taking them out. Yeah.
Simple. So what we would do is alter your breakfast, take out the burrito in terms of take out the wrap and just eat the burrito itself, like the contents of it, in a bowl.
Okay.
So when I eat cheeseburgers, I will ask my girl, we're going to eat cheeseburgers tonight. Can you make
a lettuce burger?
I make a burger bowl.
Okay.
So ground beef in a bowl, ketchup on it, or ground beef in a bowl, cheese on it, melt the cheese on it, ketchup on it. I got
ketchup.
A cheeseburger.
You know how
right
much
there.
Sugar's in that ketchup?
Not when you homemade ketchup.
Oh, wow.
And I homemake my ketchup.
Oh, wow.
But even then, as of late, I've been getting higher quality, low sugar ketchup that is still not the best for you. But for me, it's the 80-20. I use 80-20 a lot with distributions, but it's that 80-20 that I say in the book of if you eat clean 80% of the time, you can afford 20% of degeneracy. Okay. When you're looking at me, I represent 99-1 essentially. Okay. And I don't expect people to do that. Yeah. But if you can maintain an 80-20, 80% is essentially knowing when to eat certain foods and how much of those trash foods you're eating if you're going to eat them. Okay. You following me so far?
Yeah, so far so easy.
And that's Healthy Made Easy. Right. That's my whole point is it takes a conversation of deducing your behaviors and then calibrating those through education.
God, that chocolate croissant from Starbucks, I get every day. It's so stupid and so good.
Ryan, you have no idea how big of a sugar addict, namely a chocolate addict, I am.
Ugh.
I would eat 2 packs of grandma's cookies every day.
I had a king-size Tootsie Roll for breakfast yesterday while I was at work with my coffee.
Good Lord. Now you know I trash.
And sour gummy bears.
Good Lord. But now we're understanding, and when you get educated, you're able to...
I know that's not healthy. I'm not...
But you don't know to what degree it's unhealthy.
Yeah, I guess.
And if you were able to define how unhealthy it is and the difference in your lifestyle...
I just don't like to admit unhealthy. I know how unhealthy it is. I just don't like to admit it.
No one does. Bro, you're looking at someone who didn't. I was teaching people about health. I wrote a lot of the book. The book got published a week after the Chron's. But I'd written most of the book pre-experiencing this as somebody who was essentially still eating grandma's cookies. Because for me, I was telling people, grandma's cookies are bad for you. unless you look and feel like me. And if you look and feel like me, you can afford to eat it. But I didn't understand the degree to which even things like that you have to limit in your diet. To where now, I haven't had chocolate. Well, I did have some dark chocolate the other day to experiment with it.
Dark chocolate's good for you.
Yeah, low key, because of certain things in it, like called polyphenols and all this other stuff. But I haven't had chocolate since that dark chocolate. If we said I had the dark chocolate yesterday, since the day before going into the hospital from the Crohn's disease.
Damn.
And it was a chocolate cake that my girlfriend's mom made for me because I went into the hospital essentially the day after my birthday.
That sounds good.
Right. So point is though, Ryan, what am I doing for you? We haven't even gotten to midday yet. We haven't gotten to lunch yet. But I'm explaining things based off of where they're justified in freaking out about and where you can relieve that freaking out by knowing how we change it, making those calibrations.
Okay.
You with me so far?
Easy so far.
So what's the one thing you got to change immediately?
You got to not have coffee in the first thing in the morning.
And how long do you wait until you save that coffee?
Is that 90 minutes?
90 minutes, 200 IQ. What else do we learn about with regards to what foods should you avoid in the morning?
All bread.
All
carbs.
200 IQ.
All sugar.
So what does that mean? What are the only foods we can eat in the morning?
Eggs and meat.
Protein and fat. And what did our ancestors eat for pretty much
Yeah,
all
avocados and steaks what I need.
The only problem with avocados, you don't want to break fast with it because it has a lot of carbs in it.
It does?
Avocados are one of the few foods in nature that have a lot of carbs and fat.
Okay.
Yeah. We would save the avocado, though, for later in the day. That way it's still a healthy food with healthy fats, but you're not breaking your fast
just
with it.
eggs and potatoes?
No, what are potatoes?
Okay.
See what we're doing now? See how you're learning? So what is the answer then? Eggs and what? What did our ancestors eat the last 100 years before they ate cereal? Bacon and eggs.
Okay, sausage.
Sausage and eggs. Ask Mitchell what he eats every day for breakfast because he can't eat eggs.
You can't eat eggs?
I have an allergic reaction to them.
I thought eggs was bad too.
What can you eat?
No, eggs are good for. Some people have an allergic reaction to the eggs.
So you
Name
just
is
have sausage and bacon?
sausage and bacon by the pound load every single day, essentially. 10
Because
pieces
you
of
said
bacon.
fat's fine. I'm like, well, that's so fatty, but that's good.
And why do we think fat's bad?
It just looks greasy. When you cook it,
But-
it doesn't look healthy.
But why do we associate grease with being unhealthy?
I mean, it just looks like it wouldn't be
But-
good in your body.
But you have because it looks. I think you originally associating it looks gross as you associating with it looks gross is presupposed by you having been told it was gross beforehand.
I feel like that would be natural. I think
That's where I would disagree.
you think a caveman would see
Grease
hot
from
grease and be like, all right.
I'll give you a small example. My girlfriend, when she makes me bacon, her instinct is to pat down the grease off of it.
Yeah.
Me, I'm keep that grease on.
Really? It's not bad for you?
It's not bad for you if you're eating it in a healthy protocol. It's bad for you if you're eating bacon and all the saturated fat with trash carbs. So all the studies that show meat's bad for you, meat causes cancer.
Right.
They all stem from greasy foods cause this and that. It all stems from greasy
What they're
foods
eating with it.
with the carbohydrates and the trash fats.
They're saying,
essentially.
yeah, bacon's bad because, well, the bacon's not bad. It's the confetti pancakes with whipped cream and syrup you're putting on there.
Ryan, look how your brain is moving now. And this is what I do for people. I get them to, because you already have a lot of this info in your mind.
Yeah.
You had essentially walls up based off of special interest teaching us wrong shit like the food pyramid that causes us to not be able to see certain things like fat.
Can I eat
namely
cottage
saturated fat
cheese?
being good. If you eat it in correct proportions, I don't have a problem with cottage cheese.
Okay. 'Cause that's good for breakfast.
It's not
To
the
me.
worst for breakfast.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
the
go on.
lactose in it is
All right.
technically a sugar and a carb. That's another
All
conversation.
right. So far I know I'm waiting 90 minutes to have my coffee, and I'll have it black. I usually drink it black, but if I go to Starbucks, their black coffee tastes like shit, so I put cream and sugar in it.
So now we're talking about what's cream and sugar in your coffee that early in the day.
More spikes.
So if you're going to drink coffee early in the day, it's got to be black.
Yeah. That's fine with me.
Good. But this is the deduction. When somebody's not fine with that, they go, but I only drink
Oh, yeah.
Frappalacha mochas, whatever they're called. I don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
And so for them, it's like, that's too hard until they understand this base mechanism behind it, like the blood sugar spikes, and then understanding the rules surrounding those principles.
I'm not an idiot. I'll figure this out. Just, yeah,
But we just have to have the convo, right?
I guess.
That's why, Ryan, I'm telling you, after like 2 or 3 conversations like this of actually deducing your lifestyle, you know what to do at that point.
Yeah.
And all my clients that have stuck with me, I have clients that I've had for 3 years at this
Okay.
point. They stick with me because they appreciate essentially continued education.
yes, I will have this knowledge and I'll know what to do when and how to do it. But sometimes it's very easy for me to get lazy and to get out of I need,
Is that a Ryan thing, do you think?
a Ryan thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure other people suffer from the same.
I'd argue everybody does.
Yeah.
It's the degree to which you actually give into that laziness and complacency.
I just need an accountability partner. I just need
That's
somebody that kicks me in my ass.
But listen, that's why when I have people continually seeing me, even though they don't need to, it's because they appreciate that extracurricular accountability.
Yeah.
So by seeing me just once a week, though they know what to do, it keeps them accountable when they lose that motivation.
Okay.
Following me?
Oh, yeah.
So immediately we got to wait 90 minutes to drink our coffee, and we have to save our carbs for, I always say save them for after lunch. So essentially anytime after lunch, between lunch and dinner, or for dinner by itself, that's when you can have your carbs. And I also tell
just a little bit probably, huh?
it depends on what state you're at. So if you're super obese and you need to lose weight, I pretty much have people get rid of carbs completely. They go on a strict keto diet. Okay. But for you, you don't need to fix your metabolism in the same fat burning way that other people may have to.
Yeah.
So for you could eat upwards of 100 to 120 grams of carbs a day, which is a lot of carbs.
Yes.
Whereas people on keto eat less than 50.
Okay.
So you could still do that so long the carbs you're eating are the right carbs, and so long you're eating those carbs at a certain time of the day.
What are the good carbs?
Well, if we go into the book, I'll even show you. So I have a shopping list at the end of the book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so if you go to the store, and this has saved so many people time.
Yeah, that's the other part, too, with information on knowing what to buy. And
Right. So what you have is you have approved foods.
That's right.
And notice how many resistant starches, vegetables, and fruits I have on there. The thing you got to really think about is what to avoid, though.
Okay.
And so when you're going to the store, I don't expect people to go on the sort of strict diet that I know would be best for them, like a true low-carb, high-fat, high-protein diet. I tell them if you get rid of the bullshit, even if you maintain high-carb intake, if it's the right carbs, you will at least remove the trash carbs from your diet that are really causing all the problems.
I kind of want to be treated like I'm a project. I'm a robot with an empty computer system, and I need you to just go, here's what we're going to do, no, and kind of see what happens.
The only problem is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Well, I mean, I'm thirsty.
Good. Let's get it. Yeah. So what it'll be is essentially this sort of deduction. And I mean, realistically, this I think is a good enough representation of what the consultation kind of looks like.
Perfect.
Because you're able to see how thorough we can go with just 2 answers.
Yeah.
And so going forward, it's you and I working on the totality of your weekly behaviors and calibrating it to the same granular degree that we just did with how you wake up.
Well, here's the deal. There's this guy out there. His name's Israel Watson. He was trying out for the NFL. He thinks he's fast, and I think I'm faster.
Okay.
And I was talking some mad shit to him a couple weeks ago on Instagram, and then I saw him doing some drills, and I said, I'm faster. He goes, race me. I was like, oh, shit, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to laugh at me.
So remember.
And now I'm like, all right, maybe if I get healthy and I can, this can lead me to getting in the gym more, getting back to my running and working out. I'm going to smoke this fool, this kid.
Well, that's where you understanding that nutrition is it's going to make or break.
Because I know he's eating donuts. He's probably eating pizza.
And he's probably he's still living off his genetics. But
that's right.
But you have freak anomaly athletes that if they, like, you can have a Tyreek Hill who brags about eating Chick-fil-A and Zaxby's all the time. You'll have who's that savage? Chad Johnson. But who's that? Literally, who's that? DK Metcalf talking about I eat a bag of Skittles for breakfast, and that's all I eat all day. And it's like, even if that's true, those freak anomalies will still face the consequences of that bad eating, just probably less severe and probably later on. And so for them, they're in their 40s still eating like bullshit, and they're like, yeah, bro, I still feel good. I perform good. I still go to the gym. I'm doing my thing. It's like, yeah, but what if you roll your ankle, and because your body can't heal it the same way it could have if your diet and metabolism was good, you now have a broken ankle versus a sprained ankle? What if you didn't understand the implications of if you cared about your time on a marathon or something, that your performance would be better if you fixed your diet. If they're still in the league, if they're still in their professional endeavors, how much better they would operate if they're already a professional if they took care of that nutrition.
Tom Brady showed us the way.
Literally, TB12. You heard in his book he talked about the rehabilitation of
the GOAT.
Yeah, he straight up talks about that he invests more in his. I think that's probably why his marriage got fucked up, because he was too hyper focused on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then again, she's a supermodel. I'm not projecting shit. I'm just saying him in particular, by the way. But it boils down to, again, that state of being. When you're in that state of being, you're operating at a higher level. But like anything, if you're too extreme with it, I think there's a point of marginal diminishing return. Meaning if you do it too much, it's now detrimental versus being beneficial, like overtraining, for example. And I think it's the same thing with food. If you over worry about all these foods you need to eat, if you followed my strict diet, it wouldn't be sustainable for most people. But then again, most people don't have Crohn's. So because of my life circumstances, I understand the cards I was dealt and how I need to play that hand. For most people, they just have to do the bare minimum, which is why it was Healthy Made Easy, which is why I wrote that in the first place.
If I'm your robot and you do want to do whatever you want to me, are you going to say steak only?
Nope.
You're only eating meat.
Nope.
Why not?
Because
is that not the best?
Well, if you could afford to eat a certain lifestyle regularly without worrying about the financial implications of that high quality lifestyle, I would say for most people, unless they have a specific genetic reaction, like to certain proteins, like whey protein or casein, that generally speaking, our human biology has evolved to eat protein and fat.
Okay.
And we only ate carbs when it was available.
And how about other things like vegetables are all mostly good?
That's why in this book, the vegetables that I approve are good. But think about it.
And how about fermented vegetables?
They can be even better, specifically if it's like a
give me some kimchi in the morning with
type
my
shit.
eggs and
we'd have to see how much kimchi and then the overall macronutrient makeup of it, and if it's over on carbs, and because if it's over on carbs, we got to save it for later in the day.
How do you know all of, like, you are just a wealth of information. You have all these big words in your vocabulary. Like, what's
Because I'm square, my boy. You know, because I don't do anything other than research and like. Further,
you really love all that. Like, you just love researching all this stuff and getting into it. And
because for me, it's when you see somebody make a lifestyle change because of the information you've provided them, there's no price tag you can put on being able to help them now live a completely different standard of living. And so I look at every time I'm spending hours on end reading studies or watching lectures from the best minds in that field, I'm looking at it as I'm preparing to be able to give somebody the gift of changing their life.
Wow. That's pretty, I don't know, altruistic of you.
Remember last time we talked about this a little bit. It's like,
yeah,
if I didn't have that worldview, I would have the prior worldview I had, which is there's no point to most shit, survival of the fittest. It's about me. Yeah. And it would have kept me down that trajectory. But when I changed my perspective into one that was more optimistic and, in your words, altruistic, it gave me just better results in life fundamentally.
You love it. You love your life.
It's
even with Crohn's.
But that's where it's like every life is going to have its challenges. Sure. But no matter what, at the end of the day, the integrity of your mental fortitude is what's really going to qualify how happy or sad your life is. And most people have a trash mental fortitude because they give into that inconvenience, that complacency, because it's given to them immediately. Why wouldn't you give into it? And so it's really hard to go against the grain of what society's trying to impose on you, which is why 90% of Americans are technically metabolically unhealthy.
Well, that and trash food tastes good.
100%. And the science, again, the big, remember the industrial complex.
Yeah.
You have big food telling or you have the pharmacies and big medicine essentially telling the foods to make it more palatable.
I wonder if there even needs to be big food controlling the health narrative anymore. They've done so much of the commercialization, and it's just ingrained in us that we know what we want to eat. Like, couldn't they fund doctors to even be like, hey, start telling people to stop eating our stuff?
No, because the profit margin difference of them having people being healthier is so drastically different that they essentially have to be evil and thinking the only way we're going to make money is making everybody more sick, giving them the bullshit. Because we've tried, which I don't think they've really tried.
But they're eating it themselves.
That's why those doctors were so insulted.
Yeah.
That's why they're like, there's no way food's bad for you. I'm obese telling you this. They were both obese.
Of course.
And so as they're telling me this, I'm like...
It is hard to take a fat doctor seriously.
And I wonder what percentage of doctors are fat.
What percentage of Americans are fat?
Thank you. And that's where we can make that sort of cross-correlation with regards to how are we taking health advice from medical experts? We should be taking health advice from health experts. And that's essentially when you ask, like...
From Mitchell Thompson, everybody.
Well, that's why when you ask, like, I try to be so prepared. So if anybody prompts me with some questions...
You got them.
I'm just prepared for that opportunity.
Man. All right, well, people, this is Healthy Made Easy, a how-to guide on sustaining healthier eating habits by Mitchell Thompson. You can go get it wherever books are sold. The Fun Adventures of Willie and Abel is his children's book that you can get from, I don't know, his website.
Amazon, Barnes & Nobles.
Amazon.
Both of these you can get on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles.
And you have, and then a religious, how long have we been going, Charles?
About an hour and 5.
God damn.
I got time if you got time. I'm not in a rush.
Yeah, let's take a break real quick if you don't mind.
Yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
we can talk about your other book real quick and completely switch gears.
For sure.
All I've eaten today were 2 Pop-Tarts.
I'm about to eat some when I get home.
Like-
I'm gonna eat some pizza.
But I've had a lot of water.
Like two
Eat all kinds
piece of
stuff
shit.
for that
Like 2 packs of Pop-Tarts?
No, just
Okay.
one pack.
Okay.
But there were 2 Pop-Tarts in it, one pack.
Fair enough. What flavor?
Strawberry.
Oh, okay, nice. If you would have said cherry, I'm looking at you as a psychopath because
No.
no one should like cherry.
I do like cherry.
Oh, then you're a psychopath.
I don't like, any chocolate ones I don't like. S'mores or anything? Gross.
Okay, that's where I draw the line.
Those are the worst. Those, I don't-
S'mores are fire. Cinnamon's fire.
Oh, gross.
Cookies and cream.
Cinnamon ain't bad.
Okay, you have a little distance.
Now you guys are insane.
Okay, I think cookies and cream are the goat.
Any brown ones are gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Pop-Tarts.
You're flexing my crack addict side, which
Yeah.
is I used to eat all this shit religiously. That's why it's nothing for me to calibrate someone else's lifestyle because I know how I did it for myself without having somebody to guide me.
Yeah, that's what I need. I'm not afraid of being judged or anything. I just need... I don't know. I just need somebody to
Keep you accountable.
help a brother out.
Do you realize though humans have evolved as community? Are we back on?
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
cool.
Sure, why not?
I usually do the clap sound.
Yeah, I usually
That's
do,
cool.
but
I think
I'll figure it out.
you'll find a way.
I'll
You do all the
figure it
editing, yeah, you'll figure it out. Humans have evolved to depend on one another. We're communal creatures.
We're tribal creatures.
Exactly. And so if you had somebody in the tribe that knew they had the strength to haul out the meat, you had somebody in the tribe who was a better precision marksman with actually taking down the meat, and you had somebody who was legit like the distraction to then actually get the attention of the meat. And I say meat because that's what we essentially evolved when we were apex predators hunting whatever we wanted. But in that process, you need to depend on your fellow man. And we just live in a day and age where though people are Christian and may say that I'm a Christian and I follow and adhere to the precepts of Christianity or whatever religion it may be, do you even know your neighbor?
All right.
It's like we don't even know our neighbors nowadays. And we're communal creatures. And then we talk about COVID happening where everything got shut down. It makes sense why depression, suicide, and everything skyrocketed.
It's one reason, sure.
Well, there's a plethora of reasons for
Right,
sure. There's never
yeah.
just one thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
even fixing
Well,
my,
yeah.
like with my food, fixing the food wasn't the only thing that helped with the Crohn's. It was also
Right.
going back to the gym and all these other variables. But yeah, fundamentally speaking, I think it's necessary for us as humans to realize where we need a little bit of help.
Yeah.
And if we just need a little help with some coaching in terms of making sure that you don't.
I wish I just needed a little bit of help.
But here's the thing. You have no idea the sort of people I deal with regularly with regards to you're already operating from a better place with regards to not only your baseline behaviors, but your current physical state.
Oh, well, I like that.
Right. And so helping you is less of an arduous task because
That's what you
you're
think.
Well, you're a former athlete. So there's already that athlete sort of like mentality, that sort of obsessive compulsive aspect that every good quality athlete, especially if you played in college, that they maintain throughout the entirety of their life.
Yeah.
And I would even say that OCD quality has just transferred itself to a lot of the bad behaviors. It's like, I want to do this thing every day. I look forward to doing this thing every day. And you're obsessing over it compulsively, even though it may not be the best thing. And realistically, it's changing your perception on what you should then essentially prioritize in terms of that impulsivity. And as an athlete, that's life-changing for the athletes I've had.
Well, awesome. We weren't talking. Yeah, we were talking about. I wanted to talk about your other book, the religious book. What's the what's that one called?
Introspective Rationale.
Yeah, it is a terrible name.
I know, trust me.
I love it, but for a book, for what it is,
it should be the history of religion as spoken by this young man. Like, it should be something way simpler.
Something that people know what it is.
Dog, I was 3 years deep into essentially writing this book, living in my mom's basement with no job, only researching for all of this stuff. So I was in such a secluded hermit mindset that when my publicist flat out told me, bro, that name is not good, change it, I'm in the mindset like, nah, man, people will get it. It's the creative aspect of what the title means and shit. But no, trust me, Introspective Rationale, The Odyssey of Theodicies, probably not the best title for a book.
If you could go back and change the name of it, what would you change it to?
I think I would keep it more simple, like The History of Religions, something like that. But I would try to concoct like a more, just a more enticing title. But it would be something more explicit. That is, what you're reading is what you're getting. The history of human beliefs, something like that, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what the book is. It's a historical narrative.
It's a nonfiction book. It doesn't need a catchy title.
Literally. It needs to be, what am I getting into when I read this? What is the cover essentially telling me that's in the contents from cover to cover?
Judge this book by its cover.
Right. Literally, judge this book by its cover. Well, don't judge it currently as it is, because if you judge it as it is, you're going to think it's a shitty book because of the trash title. Don't judge this book by its cover.
So I bought it last week, or bought it 2 weeks ago on the audiobook because I'm a real audio slut right now. I have been forever. Who am I lying to? And I started. I started it, and I couldn't get into the voice actor's voice.
I paid the wrong person to narrate it because she makes me want to sleep every time I hear it.
And the thing is, I was like, this is so good because everything, the words that I was listening to were really well done. I was like, this book sounds good, but I can't do it with her. I gave her a try, but I was like, I can't.
Fair enough. Yeah, and that's the biggest criticism I've gotten from the audiobook is, and again, I was having to do all this myself. So I found a lady in England to narrate it for me.
What kind of Fiverr?
It was actually a program called ACX. It's like a Fiverr, but it's specific to narration.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I essentially went through this website. I had a script that I had a bunch of people read. And again, I impulsively I was like, she sounds professional. She sounds like the type of shit I'm looking for. And I didn't even really, I had 3 people I chose from when I only gave it 2 days. So if I'd have given it like a week to let the actual auditions roll in, I probably could have found a better alternative.
Damn.
She's a professional through and through, and she's really good at what she does, but it was the wrong format for her style.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. But I'm glad that you were at least able to explore the potential of what it had to offer, even though I'm aware for most people when they read that book, it's so dense with information that I don't expect most people to read it, which is why I never really promote it in the first place.
Okay, fair enough.
That's why I promote these books.
Have you thought about, is there like re-releasing it under a different name and a different, maybe you narrate the book?
For sure, yeah. So the next step.
Could you do that, or is there like a contract that's like?
No, okay. Yeah. So at some point, I'm going to remaster it, so it'll be a second edition, essentially.
Oh, there you go.
And that second edition will be my narration and me fixing up some of the redundancies throughout the books. Especially when you get into the history, chapter 3. Chapter 3 is split into 5 subchapters, and each subchapter has 2 subchapters. So the first subchapter in chapter 3 is going to be the history of the Mesopotamians. And
so this is just a book of all the religions, or
the main worldly religions that influenced the Abrahamic religions.
Okay.
So I start with the Sumerians, and I explained their history. That's one subchapter. So within the subchapters, you have Mesopotamia, which is subchapter 1 in chapter 3. You have
how far back are we talking?
4,000 BCE.
So how is that?
That's
6,000
years ago. Really, 10,000. I started at the age of the ice sheets melting when we started farming and agriculture. That's really when I started.
What started first, farming or religion?
I would say religion, and then the aspects of that religion started manifesting itself through the culture of the farmer. So humans used to like Native Americans, right? We used to
And
say
they would just talk about the farmer's market, and that's how the ideas would spread?
No, it's talking about the god of wheat versus the god of wind type shit,
Okay.
right? The god of wine versus the god of fucking the ancient lion or whatever. It's like they have a different anthropomorphization, which means a different humanizing of natural phenomenon given whatever state of their culture. So if you're in a culture where you're nomadic, the phenomenon that you're essentially articulating is the wind, the
so
rain,
that was like 10,000,
storm.
but your book was more focused from about 6,000 years
Exactly,
ago?
because
Okay.
I
The
mentioned
Abrahamic ones.
Exactly. I
Okay.
mentioned essentially 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs went extinct, and there was this little tree shrew, this little mammal that survived. And that tree shrew, as we know of evolution, is essentially how we got mammals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I give a little anecdote of everything like that up until we immediately start with farming. And so when I talk about the Sumerians, and that's chapter 2. Chapter 2 is given that pre-context. It's essentially the dawn of man. And I took that from 2001: A Space Odyssey. At the very beginning, whenever Stanley Kubrick has the monkeys transitioning from just monkeys to intellectual apes with the whole smashing of the rock with the tool, or the smashing of the bone with the tool. You know what that reference I'm giving? Have you never seen?
I don't know the movie. I'm aware there's a movie called that or a book called that, but
So 1969 or 1967, 2001: A Space Odyssey was
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was like the first real like sci-fi movie. It was like a real in-depth sci-fi movie. And the director of it is somebody I respect. He's a creative genius. And it's Stanley Kubrick. I mean, Stanley Kubrick did The Shining, right? Like,
Not a big Kubrick fan.
fair enough. I haven't seen all of his films, but I did like the one with Tom Cruise about the Illuminati, essentially.
Vanilla Sky or
No. It's
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut, 200 IQ. So I liked Eyes Wide Shut. I liked 2001: A Space Odyssey. Was it Full Metal Jacket he did?
Ooh, did he do that one?
I think he did Full Metal Jacket. He did one of those army movies. One of those.
Apocalypse Now?
See,
No,
now
that
you
was
get
the
me.
other guy. Was it Oliver Stone or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. But the point is, chapter 2 was inspired by what the scene in that movie expresses, which is once one of our ancestors, whether they were Homo erectus, whether it was, it doesn't matter.
A lot of different homos.
Hilarious.
I mean, no, there were.
Legit. You had Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalis, all these different homos, right?
Yeah.
What you had happen was we transitioned from being like the animals to being humans, essentially. And that is what the Bible and what
Homo sapiens.
and that's what the Bible and all these religions articulate is what makes humans so different than the animals. And that's essentially how every belief structure, that's what every belief structure,
these, right?
literally, it's our ability to grab stuff
Our thumbs.
and our ability to walk while using
Right.
our hands. So chapter 3 starts off after giving some pre-context to what happened before farming. Chapter 3 starts 6,000 years ago once we actually started farming, essentially. Or when we've been 2,000 years deep of farming where we have the culture defined through actual writing. And we have the writing.
You know what it sounds like to me? Humans were obviously nomadic, just trying to survive, doing what they can.
Mm-hmm.
They figured out farming to where they can just kind of hang out in one area
Right.
for multiple seasons. And they got bored, and some of them got enough food to eat that they didn't have to spend all their calories on farming. They could spend them on thinking and pontificating.
Literally.
And they'd get around and they'd have their ale or mead or whatever it was they're drinking back then. And like, let's talk about some, like, what happens when you die?
Right.
This guy, I was working with Fred, a rock fell on him and he just stopped talking and walking.
Where's he at now?
What do you think happened to him?
Right. And that's the beautiful part when you think about,
I think there's a God out there.
and that's why, Ryan, like, that's why, though I don't promote my first book, I'm still proud of what it represents, because it represents every individual knowing we started out a certain way as a monolithic group. Once we were able to farm, we started specializing in our specific areas where we settled, and that's how you ended up birthing certain individual cultures. And I start with those Sumerians. And then you learn how the Sumerians evolved, honestly, in tandem with the Egyptians, because after the Sumerians, I talk about the Egyptians, and you learn how those cultures then influence each other to then influence the culture surrounding the Judaism before it became Judaism. Then you learn the history of the Old Testament essentially through Judaism, and then you go to Christianity. After you learn Christianity, you learn Islam. So you're learning from the beginning to essentially the end of how the Abrahamic religions got
How much
solidified.
information is there from the first farmers? Like, how do we know when they first started trying to come up with an idea of God and writing it down? I mean, clearly they didn't know how to write for many, many generations. It was just all spoken story and ideas, I'm sure.
Oral tradition is what they call it.
Right, oral tradition. How much information do we actually have of how the Abrahamic traditions or gods began?
So that's why I started with the Sumerians, because we have deciphered their ancient writings, and they were technically considered the first written culture who actually started documenting their stuff. And why did they start documenting their stuff? Because they now have a bunch of grains and wheat they have to take into account. So it started off essentially as just taking taking stock, taking storage, taking
Inventory.
Inventory, thank you.
Yeah.
So writing started off as inventory.
Yeah.
And so once they had a systematic cycle of writing down, they then said, how can we tell the stories that we've been orally articulating now in this new written format? The Sumerians were one of the first ones to do that. The only problem is they weren't technically the first. One of the oldest are the ancient Indians. They were known as the Harappan society. Harappa is this ancient old city that's as old as the cities in Sumeria. We just can't decipher their language. We can't decipher any of their
What part of the
tablets.
world?
This is in India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Sumer is going to be
Sorry,
in
my
Iraq.
American brain went Indians, and I didn't
Right,
know
you're
what
Native
you were
American,
talking
right.
about. Okay.
So you have the ancient Indians who had a society where they wrote down their stuff no different than the Sumerians. The only difference is we can't decipher their writings yet. And it's the Indus River Valley people. We haven't deciphered.
So we don't know what it says at all. It could
At
be a
all.
completely different God, which I'm sure.
It guaranteed is because
is.
they're from a different culture. But
Right.
that's where when I write in the book, I write about how you can parallel the gods from afar and realize why they are paralleled, because essentially they all stem from the human articulating it. And if you're a human in Mesoamerica and Aztec, or if you're a human in ancient Egypt, you're a human.
Let me skip a few chapters with this question, and spoiler alert. Is this give reason because there actually is a God, or is this reason because no, we just needed something to do and come up with?
So chapter 5 is mathematics. So I give the history of math. And you're wondering, why would I give the history of math when I'm giving the history of religions? And it's because you end up... Go ahead.
No, never mind. I'm sorry.
No, it's just I write it in a way where you're learning this guy did this and this guy said that, and it led to all these things. So when I get to the math chapter, I say this guy did this and it led to all these things, to the point where if you had King Solomon and King David, and we have these two characters in the Bible that I'm talking about from a historical standpoint, I explain their involvement in fanaticism of that religion, no different than when I talk about Isaac Newton and Wilhelm Leibniz. You had a dude named Wilhelm Leibniz who is essentially, I think it's Wilhelm, I may be conflating a different name, but Leibniz was his last name, and he was the one that actually notated calculus as we know it, meaning he created the formulas and shit. People give Isaac Newton credit for it because Isaac Newton himself did independently also create calculus, but he understood what he was writing, so he left out a bunch of shit. He didn't care for people to replicate it. Leibniz goes, we've got to systemize this. So he systemized it. So people give Isaac Newton credit for discovering calculus when it was really Leibniz. And I think the reason why is because Newton was British, Leibniz was German. The British were the ones that wrote history, so they go, fuck Leibniz. It's all about Newton, right? So I write in the book these two characters representing two schools of thought, no different than, let's say, the Sadducees and the Pharisees of the ancient Jewish people. Mm-hmm. You have those that are in power with the government versus those that are just trying to help the people. And then you learn the history and why they're implicated in the history. So you do the same thing with a Leibniz and with an Isaac Newton, and you explain the same shit, and you realize it's the same story. It's people follow a belief, and they're so fanatic over it, they're willing to fight for it. And you literally had the followers of Leibniz and Newton fighting over who was right. And so when I explain that, I go, now we've gotten to the point where we can talk about quantum physics and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and all these deeper thoughts. But my whole point is, even if you don't understand this shit, like you don't understand the religion, this way of thinking is essentially the same way of thinking from a religious standpoint, that there is something greater and there is a definitive truth out there that transition from a Christian way of thinking to a scientific way of thinking. And so chapter 5 is essentially the history of math, which says we evolved from thinking religiously, and that transferred over into our scientific thinking, which is what got us the Industrial Revolution and everything. And there's a reason Christianity got us that scientific revolution and not other traditions and not other religions.
Why? For proselytizing?
It's least about proselytizing, and it's the fundamental precepts that the religion operates off of. And Christianity operates off of the fundamental presupposition that truth is all that matters.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Other religions, it's about adherence. It's about follow what I say because I said it. Christianity says question the integrity of things and come to discover the truth yourself. And so what does that do when you're a Christian scientist like Isaac Newton? Because Isaac Newton was not only a staunch Christian, he was celibate his whole life. And he was proud of it. He used to demonize people that were not celibate as essentially demon zealots.
You just don't know how good pussy is.
Right. But point is, though, right, is you have somebody who is a staunch religious Christian who caused a paradigm shift in the scientific revolution just by discovering or articulating certain things like gravity. So to skip ahead, chapter 5 essentially says math and science is our new God. We have faith that light years and shit work the way they do, but it's all faith. All of this stems from a faith-based perspective that we have to operate from. The only difference in the two is you can physically prove math can get you a strong building. You can't physically prove faith in God will get you a strong life.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people cut out their religious precepts.
Well, that's also, well, I mean, math is real. You know, you can put two apples and 2 apples equals 4 apples.
You can physically prove that.
Physically prove it. But these were just stories told how many different languages ago, and we're hoping we deciphered these languages
Right.
10 different times correctly. And if you've ever tried to learn another language,
Oh, my goodness.
just from English to Spanish,
My goodness.
what kind of, fights you can have just over a simple misunderstanding.
Exactly. That old game of telephone.
And now we're supposed to, I don't know.
Well, that's where...
That's where the question is. It's like, all right, well, but these were just stories after people were farming, came up with, this guy, and then he's going to send his son who's going to, you know what I mean?
But my thing is what underlies that is the principles. So the underlying...
No, the principles are awesome.
But that's where you can't...
My question is there a real, how true... Well, I mean, they're all the... So which one is the true one? Are there any true ones?
This is my question. Is love real?
A feeling of love is a feeling.
Is it real?
It's real to... It's different for everybody.
So that is why it's so hard. You could give that exact same answer with someone's belief in God. Is God real? It's different for everybody. And if you don't believe...
Yeah, but the believers of God love God.
Right.
But what are you loving?
You're loving the
You're
precepts.
loving a feeling that you have.
No, you're expressing that feeling of love through the principles of that denomination or of that religion. So like a Muslim loves God because a Muslim shows his love for God through his behaviors. A Christian shows their love for God through their behaviors. But the question is, how real is that love? That thing we can't physically quantify.
You have to ask the individual, I guess.
And so when we're talking
or
about...
only the individual knows, because there's a lot of fakers out there.
So if you don't believe in something because you can't prove it, you have to ask yourself if the physical proving of it is the only way to justify the existence of that thing.
I guess questioning the existence is one thing. I don't know about clearly, but there's something's going on, right?
Right.
Probably. But to suggest one person has the correct answer
is ridiculous.
Yeah. And so I guess that's where the issues are with religion.
I
with
agree.
A lot of people it's like, what? I can believe in God, but I have to believe in a certain theory. I have to accept Jesus or else I can't go to this afterlife.
And that's where I do agree that there is aspects of being on any one team that can always lead to trouble. Like, for example, I told you about this a little bit last time. Growing up biracial, I was always too white for black people and too black for white people. So every time I was put up to choose a side, I never, one day I would choose this, one day I would choose another. Like I never really had a side that I identified with. And so I think the extreme nature of me never having a team conditioned my mind to never look at things as team orientated. So when I look at a Muslim behaving like a good human, doing everything they're supposed to, everything that would fall in line with the same precepts of a Christian, I don't see it any different than them behaving as a Christian. It's when they start doing evil shit that in their religion goes against what a Christian religion says that you could say it's quote unquote wrong. But the question then is, why Christianity? Yeah. And that's why I was telling you earlier, because out of all of them, it's the only one that got us to this point.
Got us. Yeah. Okay.
And so for me, it's like, if you're going to choose a team, you're going to choose the team that's the most effective, even though they're all
effective
faulty.
At what? Capitalism?
No, effective at keeping society together, where your morals and your ethics are universally on par.
What about like Eastern philosophy and Eastern cultures?
That's why if you read my book, especially chapter 3 all the way through, the Sumerians, the Indians, and the Egyptians create the foundation, and then you'll have Hinduism, Buddhism spreading from that. You'll have Christianity, Judaism spreading from that. But the book is essentially giving you, this is where most beliefs came from because of how they lived. Now we can extrapolate in detail why each one is specifically their own. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's always going to be infinitely different because the individual human from a specific culture is articulating that quote unquote godness, whatever that thing we can't define is.
So does your book suggest that?
It doesn't suggest to be a part of any religion.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Nope.
It's just as long as you believe in a God, it doesn't matter which one it is. Only you know what kind of love there is in your heart for that thing that you believe in.
Now, it
doesn't matter what that thing is to believe in.
Well, that's the only issue with that way of thinking. Is you then say, well, is a pedophile he thinks it's okay to fuck a kid?
I don't think they think it's okay. They just do it anyway.
No.
I think they know it's not okay.
Right. But for them, when they do it, they justify it as okay because it's their impulse. Like they have that impulse to do it. So you got to ask yourself, if somebody was saying, just believe in whatever God you think is right. If he wanted to say, well, I believe there's a God that says I should fuck kids, we can agree that there is a line in the sand of what's actually right and wrong. Mm-hmm. And so that's where if you're...
Well, that's the society. That's not religion. That's just society saying that.
Right, but the society saying that stems from the religious underpinnings that the society developed from. Like we could say Judeo-Christian values in America.
Well, Muhammad had a 13-year-old.
Muhammad had a 7-year-old who ended up being 9. Yeah, she was 9 when he consummated the marriage with her. So that's my point. If I'm talking with...
I guess that culture thinks it's...
If I'm talking with a Muslim and I ask them, are you Sunni or Shiite? And they immediately say Sunni because 90% of Muslims are Sunni. I then have to ask them, okay, are you Quran only or do you believe in the Hadith and the Sunnah? 9 times out of 10, they'll say they believe in the Hadith and the Sunnah, which just means the extra writings outside the Quran. If they're Quran only, they have to only stick with the Quran. Then you start breaking down their actual belief structure. And if you get to a point where they think it's okay to beat their wife, they think it's okay to have sex with a 9-year-old, they think these things are okay. If they think it's okay to put a tax on, it's called jizya, I believe, on Christians and Jews because they don't want to convert, so they have to pay more of a price. They're considered dhimmis, I think is what it was called. It's like, if you really believe that sounds like a pretty evil, corrupt way of basing your entire belief structure. Because
that would make a very wild society if that's how society was run.
And so for me, if you're asking, then you can believe whatever you want so long that it's true to you. There is still a fundamental drawing of the sand and of the line in the sand that says, but they're still right and wrong. As long as what you believe in is past the benchmark of it having to at least be right and not wrong, that's where I do agree that the detailed variation of your belief structure matters less than you just being a good person, always choosing good over evil.
And we base good on evil in different...
But that's what... Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think that there is a good and there is an evil, or do you think that's subjective?
I don't know if there's a good and evil.
Then why is it wrong to have sex with a 9-year-old?
I mean, a million reasons.
But if that person thinks that there is no definitive,
I think the only reason why they do it is because they have a mental disorder. I don't think they're.
But you said it yourself. They know it's wrong.
Yeah, of course they do. Everybody knows it's wrong.
So how can there not be a definitive good and evil if we're both right now articulating that there is something that is just wrong?
Well, I shouldn't because if I'm a libertarian more, like leave me alone. Leave you alone. Leave other people alone. Don't cause
as long as you don't hurt other
people.
people, right?
So that's where that comes from. I don't know.
But my point is, how do we define what hurts other people?
I don't know why you would need a definition on why that's not hurt. That you're doing something to somebody else.
But what if
against their will?
So let's re-ask the question so we can totality get to the concept that we both believe in, so we can clearly define it. Do you think there is just good and evil in the world, or can good and evil be defined arbitrarily?
Oh, I don't think it can be. I think acts are evil or good. I don't think. I don't know, man. I don't know if there's is there a force? Is there an evil force and a good force?
Let's not think of it like that. Let's just think: is there good that we can define, and is there evil? So now we're at a point though that there is now parameters surrounding our beliefs.
But your word of good and evil, what is that? I'm just like
that's where there is variety. But there's at least my point is there is a line in the sand of we know there are things that are just
things
evil.
that are acceptable and unacceptable.
Right. I look at it no different. This is why I wrote it in chapter 5, the math chapter. It's no different than 2 + 2 = 4. Can 2 + 2 = 5 sometimes?
Today's with
right. You started. But
it depends on who you ask.
But let's ask, and that's why I'm
which is the weird thing. But yeah,
but that's why I'm posing it like this, because we live in a day and age where because people don't have defined religious parameters, the deduction of that rationale is believe what you want. Even if it means allowing a 12-year-old to believe that they're of the gender that they may not be, or an 8-year-old.
Right.
So we have to, as a society, have defined parameters. Otherwise, like you alluded to earlier, it's just going to be chaos.
Okay, we should have these parameters, of course. However, societies have been changing forever and ever, and is it just a part of how? Even if it go like who are, I don't want to say who are we to judge to the slide of a society where it's going down, but if that's what the people want.
But what if the people want, like in Sodom and Gomorrah, they want to rape, pillage, and have sex with people without any consequences?
Well, then they're gonna get the consequences.
Not if the society says that's not a bad thing.
Well, that's where. You are going to get, that's where war happens, because you're going to have good pockets of society that say you can't do that.
How do you define good?
The people that say you can't do that.
But who's right or wrong? The people that are saying you can't.
The people that win.
So that's why though.
That's what I'm saying.
100%. But that's why superficially you're 100% right. But at the end of the day, is there a baseline somebody was still wrong? Even if the wrong person won, is there still a wrong?
Yeah, but that's where manipulation comes in. The people that were wrong
for sure.
was a dude that was able to impose his will and his intellect on a group of people and let them know, hey, I know you guys think this is wrong, but listen to me. Hear me out.
Right.
She looks really good in that dress. Now, hear me out. You know what I mean? Like they
100%.
start rationing, and then they just get a couple people, and then their tribe gets bigger and bigger.
And next thing you know, you have a caliphate that justifies the beheading of women still in the 21st century.
Well, I'm not aware of that fully, but
Saudi Arabia and Iran. I mean, just think about Saudi Arabia and Iran.
I'm very ignorant to the Middle East.
It's okay if geopolitics isn't your thing. I'm
getting more into it, but
I would prefer most people didn't, because we need to worry about America.
That's what I like to think, but I mean, we're behind. We're behind all that shit back.
I agree with you. And
World War III has basically started recently, and it's just getting worse. Iran just
attacked Israel.
Attacked Israel. Well. But don't they have a right to defend themselves?
Who, Iran?
Yeah.
Who did Israel attack in Iran?
They just their consulate. They just blew up their consulate in Syria.
Oh, okay. See, these are things I'm not even privy to.
This was a retaliation. This was a
okay.
This was
they did that after Iran? Or
Iran just did this last night
as a response
as
to
a retaliation. They gave them plenty of warning.
Gotcha.
And it was Iron Dome. They knew what they were doing. So it was kind of
a test.
It was kind of this is a warning shot. Right. Like, hey. And they just said, we're done. We're not doing that again. don't retaliate.
Okay.
Israel or U.S., you fuck up. You retaliate for this, it's fucking on.
Fair enough.
Don't fucking do it. What do you think we're going to do?
100%. But that's where, Ryan, for me, remember we talked last time, control what you can, accept what you can't.
Yeah.
And you can control
What I eat. I'm just kidding.
hilarious. Bring it back to that. Literally, though, you can control essentially knowing what you spend your time learning and researching to then have the real estate of your mind be things you can actually implement. Like so many people, I have a buddy, I told you guys, I did a podcast with a Palestinian where I'm essentially I'm not trying to defend the state of Israel. That's the last thing I'm trying to do. Because in my opinion, the state of Israel, based off of the belief structure of Judaism, the kingdom of David in a state of Israel should not exist until Jesus in the Jewish scripture comes back.
Well, that's why Christians and Jews have a disagreement over there.
Well, 100%. And that's also why my buddy that we did the podcast with, my buddy Mo, he was justified in saying, as a Christian, you should be outraged that Christian Palestinians are getting persecuted by this Jewish state. And I'm like, bro, I agree with you. But we have to know enough data to then know what we can then do about it, like what we can actually do about it. And him being Palestinian, there's
nothing about it.
Right, but there's more reason for him to spend all day researching it and shit, right?
Sure.
If you're an American, it's like, bro, go learn about Southside Chicago, go learn about Baltimore, or even St. Louis or Kansas City. Learn about where in America we need to start focusing our priorities on, so we don't give justification for these endless wars.
You sound like a Trump supporter.
I'm America first.
You're gonna tell us we got to shut the border down now?
I'm America first.
How dare you? Yeah, religion's wild, man. So I don't know if there's good or evil. I mean, there's things that I believe. I mean, I don't know.
Do you know 2 + 2 is 4?
Yeah, of course.
But of course is how can you say?
I mean, I know there's good and evil, of course, but my definitions are going to be different for other people.
For sure, but as long as
so I'm just saying, as like an entity, is there a good spirit world and a bad? Like, it just depends on where you take this good and evil business.
True, and I just believe at the end of the day, I 100% agree with you. The good can be more or less in terms of how we qualify it as good, as long as it's past the line of not being evil.
You do. Okay. Do you think it is? Do you think there's as much good in the world as there is evil? Do you think there's a yin and yang?
I think the only reason society hasn't crumbled is because there has to be some balance there.
There has to be good and there has to be evil, huh?
I think the only way we can define good is by defining evil. I think if you see an animal, if you see a gazelle get mauled by a lion, is that evil?
No.
Right. So humans got to a point of being able to define those sort of actions. Is it evil if that lion mauled that gazelle, didn't eat it, and just wanted to murder it?
No.
See, these are the sort of questions, because it's in the animal kingdom, that we had to extrapolate from when separating ourselves. So when that got transferred onto then thinking about another human, now what would the answer be?
What?
Is it okay to kill somebody unless it's war?
Are you going to eat them?
No. I hope not.
Well, then no.
But
yeah, of course you can't kill anybody,
right.
Even in war. It's
still wrong.
I mean, yeah, it depends on the war. If you're defending yourself, not like whatever.
But my point is, we are getting to a point where every time we have an anecdote or an example, we agree.
Well, why is there war?
We agree because of that fundamental. We have the choice to do evil
because of religion.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I do.
What do you mean?
I do think that religion plays a big part of it.
Yeah, it's probably started almost all the wars. That or a beautiful woman.
What about when you haven't seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, so I can't make that reference.
No, I haven't.
I agree, though. Trust me. And that's the point, Ryan, is nearly everything that we've discussed, not only this podcast episode, but the last one, we parallel a lot of the same thoughts. Where we differ is in the initial perspective on seeing that thing. So if we look at religion, I think I just look at it as a different thing than you may look at it. And the way you look at it could be more of, I see it more as a controlling sort of institutional thing that keeps people in check so they don't do evil shit. I see religion as
control.
I see religion as justified control for those that are out of control.
Well, who's controlling them?
The Word of God.
Who's delivering the word of God?
That's where I believe the word of God arises from the wisdom of humans over time to give us that just truth, no different than science. We were able to get science because truth living. We were able to get Christianity because of truth living. That's why in that book I wrote it that way, so you could see mathematics and science as a belief system no different than religion. But what's the difference in the belief? The difference is mathematics, we can physically prove it, 2 apples. Religion, you can't really prove faith and belief. So one requires more spiritual acquiescence than the other.
think there's instances where people's faith can be proven.
For them, though. We can't objectively prove it. Like,
I don't know about that.
Well, no. So what do you mean by where people's faith can be proven?
Well, didn't we prove Jesus's faith? If we're going to that story, didn't he prove his faith?
Right. So that's my point, though. So
by what? By being sacrificed
it's
and not fighting against it and saying, this is who I am, and staying true to it.
The moral of that story, exactly.
Was he believed.
And so that is one of, some people can say, I don't believe Moses parted the Red Sea. I don't believe Jesus actually walked on water. But I identify with 99%, if not 100%, of the precepts of that religion because they underline in truth. And how am I defining truth? As that line of being able to say, there is good, there is bad. There is positivity, there is negativity. There is always something, and there's always that other. And what religions do is give you a structure on knowing you have the choice to choose. And that's where we get caught up when we don't have religion. Because people unintentionally choose evil, thinking they're still doing good, not realizing how much potential bad they're actually doing because they don't have that structure in place. Quote unquote, out of control, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, again, I believe a lot of that just is manipulation by those in power that want to.
There's part of that for sure.
Do it, I guess, be evil.
I agree 100%. That is a big part of institutional anything.
Right.
Power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Correct.
That's why you'll never hear me defend the Catholic Church. You'll never hear me defend certain things that, at the end of the day, if it's the institution and not the precepts that the institution is supposed to be following, I'm going to defend the principles and the precepts. I'm not going to defend the priest and the fondlers, we'll say.
Well, what would you suggest people do? Just read the Bible by themselves, or should they find what do you suggest people do?
I suggest they do what the Bible says. The Bible says, learn all the other beliefs and come to a conclusion on your own.
Okay.
I think people should.
But if they want to stay if they want to keep the religion going in like to stay disciplined,
right?
Like with a healthy diet, I need someone to kick me in the ass every now and then.
That's why going to church is so important.
That's what I'm saying. So you're suggesting this is inevitably what you are hoping you'll do with this book is kind of get people to go to church?
No, my first book was literally just a history book. I wasn't trying to really do anything for anybody with it. The first book was trying to explain stuff. Okay. But no, truly, that's why I didn't say go follow this religion.
But you're going to naturally get there.
You're going to naturally get there because that's the path of the truth. And that's
for Abrahamic religions.
Well, for Christianity in particular, because you don't have.
Oh, right.
You don't have. You got to live by truth in Judaism. You don't have. You got to live by truth in Islam. You have follow what God said because He said it.
Yeah.
Christianity is follow the truth because it's what's right. Follow the truth because it's the truth. And if you just replace Jesus with truth,
but why do I got to be a square? And
you don't.
I don't know.
You don't.
I know. And I'm just kidding around. But I mean, like, why do they got to be? I went to church for a very long time and was balls deep in that whole.
What denomination?
Everything. It was a mega church. It was a non-denominational. Was what I normally went to.
It's hardly a church.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
Because there's that same laissez-faire. There is no way to define what God really meant by this.
Well, they lean Baptist heavy. I would think.
Okay.
A lot of those. I feel like non-denominational churches. Tend to lean more Baptist style, at least.
For sure. A pescatarian for me, Presbyterian, geez.
Fish eater.
Right, literally. A Presbyterian or even a is it Episcopalian?
Episcopalian, yeah.
Yeah, those two are going to be more closer to the discipline and precepts of what it means to be a Christian. If you're going to just be the Protestant. The whole point of the Protestant section that's split from the Catholic Church is we don't like the rules that I can't divorce my wife. I want to divorce my wife.
Right.
So again,
so you think if you're going to do it, you should do it like the strictest, maybe not strictest, but like the oldest,
the bare minimum of what the rules say to follow.
The bare minimum of the just the 10 Commandments.
You could
Old Testament, New Testament. What are we? Well, both,
legit both.
All
At
right.
that point, it's. Unless you become a biblical expert yourself, that's where it's important to surround yourself with That's why being in a church is important, even if it's a non-denominational church, being surrounded by somebody who can at least answer some of those scriptural questions for you. To where if you wonder, it's just like if you wondered if it's wrong to do X, Y, Z and you don't know, but you need to get some confirmation on it.
But I don't think it's,
Like, is it wrong to cheat on my wife and divorce her? It's like certain denominations of Christianity, of Protestantism, would say, if you repent for it, then no. Whereas in Catholicism, especially if you go through the divorce. I want to get to the point.
Why are you cheating on her? Sure, yeah, that part's wrong, but why are you getting to that point?
If you're asking my opinion, it's
what
because...
What is she doing?
But why is she doing what she's doing?
Right.
Because she doesn't have that religious structure in her mind either.
That's right. We got
to get these girls to be psalm women. Because in the book of Psalms, you have essentially the...
Religion.
Or is it a Proverbs?
See, this is wild. Yeah. This is my problem with religion. There's too much shit written down and too many rules and too much control. And it's just... I understand, yes, just love your neighbor, be a good person. Don't murder. Don't fuck your friend's wife.
Exactly.
Don't steal.
I believe that if you just try to do good, you don't necessarily need to have that religious definition. But we have to be able to define what good is. And I do believe 2 + 2 is 4.
I don't think that's a religious thing. I think that's a normal human being thing. And then religion does mess it up where it says, well, what is your definition of doing good or evil?
So you're
because if you thought about having sex with your friend's wife, that's a sin.
That's what Christianity says.
Can't. That's what I'm saying. So that's my problem with all this shit.
Right, but my whole thing is ultimately, you're defining the religion as the institution. Because in Christianity, it doesn't say you have to be perfect on all these fronts. It's saying if you do these things, they're bad. And once you do them, this is, again, if we're going to use the biblical vernacular.
It's all Bible stuff, man.
But just listen to me. If you have the power of the Holy Spirit, we'll say, and you actually cheat on your wife and feel bad about it, and you actually feel bad about it and don't cheat on her again and do the right things, that in Christianity is what it means to truly live in truth and repent. But the problem is with other religions, they say, if you just say it, that's all that matters. You don't have to really believe it. You have to actually, or you can just say it. Christianity says you have to believe and have conviction in that change. And so that's where you're saying, I don't know, it's all just religion. It's like, no, the religion and the institutions are two different things. Religion.
Because I'm saying when you're hanging out with these people and you just want those answers, you're getting a lot of the strict answers, and it's a lot of like
judgment. You're probably assuming
it's the judgment. Yeah. That's where it comes from, and it's like that's my issue with all it. It's just too much. There's too much structure. And then you've got one guy that's ahead in that's speaking. He's the one guy, like, he should know everything. We all have to look up to him. How many people idolize him and don't even know it?
I agree.
You know what I mean? It's just everything about it.
That's the institution, though. See,
the institute, but they're one and the same.
Okay, I think I agree. They have aspects of being intimately intertwined. I am not denying that. But if you throw the baby out with the bathwater, you're going to be in a state. Then
you're not going to go to heaven.
See,
Mitchell,
but no,
don't you understand that?
That's where, for me, us having this conversation is more nuanced than did you sin? You're going to hell now. It's more nuanced than that.
That's not even what they're saying. Did you sin? Yeah. Well, you're not going to hell, but do you feel bad? All right.
But do you actually feel bad about that to where you won't sin again? That's the whole point. Because if you do it again, you didn't really feel bad about it, and now you go to hell.
Well, maybe you felt bad about it, and you forgot that you felt that bad.
Then
about
you didn't really feel that bad about it. That's what I would argue.
Well, now I do really feel bad about it, and and it's not going to happen again. No. Why is that not the same?
As long as at the
how many strikes do I get, Mitchell?
I don't think you have any strikes, and
that's what I'm saying.
As long as you actually get to a point of having that true repented conviction.
What if? That's because you have a relationship with God. Well, there's not really a God. There's a good and an evil. I know that's the wrong thing to do, so I'm not going to do it. And if I do it again, I guess I have a compulsion to do that.
That's what's evil, though. You having the compulsion to do that. I know fucking a 9-year-old's bad, but I have the compulsion to do it, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, of course I do, because all man sins. So that's just a part of what I have.
But see, that's where I think you're missing out on the last part I'm saying. All man sins, so I'm just going to sin.
We all fall short of the glory of God.
We do, but at the end of the day, unless you actually change the behavior by actually repenting, it doesn't matter. And that's the difference is, do you actually repent?
Well, then maybe
does it show through your change?
Then maybe I don't think cheating on my wife is evil.
And that's where we can have the discussion then of how we're defining that action.
I'm not married, by the way.
Right,
these
for
are
sure.
These are I'm just devil's advocating, just kind of spit and shake.
100%. And that's where, though, at the end of the day, if you're able to have at least, I know there's right and wrong,
but if I don't,
trying to define that can be infinitely variable.
Yeah, that's we're all good. If I don't think it's wrong to cheat on my wife, am I an evil person?
Who is somebody getting hurt in it in this process?
What's your definition of hurt? Her feelings are hurt, but is she hurt?
But that's my see how what's your definition of?
She didn't love it.
So what if?
But she said, "Don't do it again."
What if somebody said, "Well, Muhammad marrying that 7-year-old and consummating the marriage at 9? I mean, it was right to them. She didn't love it. Was she really hurt? She had the prophet watching over her. She was married to the prophet. Imagine how esteemed Aisha is now because she is the last wife of the prophet."
What year was that? I don't know.
That's 600 AD, 600 years after Jesus.
I
They needed Jesus.
What
That's
were,
the problem.
what were their calendars? Are you sure she was really 7 and it wasn't 7?
That's where if I'm asking a Muslim, remember what we talked about earlier, if I'm talking to a Muslim and they're Sunni and they believe in the Hadith and the Sunnah, I will then say, do you fuck with Sahih al-Bukhari? Do you listen to the testaments of Sahih Muslim? Do you listen to Ibn Kathir? These are all people that you have to listen to. And guess what they say? Aisha was not only 7, she was not only 9, she hadn't hit puberty yet.
Yeah.
Well, so there's no misinterpreting that. And that's why when I get to that deduction with a particular faith and they get to that point of deduction, their answer is always, it was a different time.
Right.
And then you have a whole different argument of, so you're telling me your God knew it would be wrong later in the future, but still allowed it back then? Because human biology hasn't changed whatsoever. Especially in the last 2,000 years, we'll say.
Yeah. That's an interesting God to believe in.
So is there right and wrong? That's the ultimate question we ask, right? And I'm confident you agree there's a right and wrong. It's just I think you're caught up on the institution aspect of religion to not give religion its due diligence of being the setted parameter of defining that right and wrong.
I don't know what I give. I don't accredit religion with much good.
Well, that's fair. And I think, again, you don't do that because of the institution. And that's 100% fair. But
right. Well, what else is religion? Then what is religion if it's not institution?
So if anything, it's a
Just
way
a
to
belief?
define the belief system and the structure of that belief system.
All right.
And
But
that's
where did that
the
belief system come from?
But that system's different than the institution. The institution is what implements the system.
I don't know, man.
It's like
The institution
how about
holds
this?
the words
Is,
for it.
How about this? Is food bad?
Is food bad?
Right.
No.
Right. So the whole point is the institution of big food is bad because they've corrupted shit. But food itself isn't necessarily bad.
I'm sure. I bet you there's some good.
Well,
Again,
that's what
I'm
this
sure
is
there's-
about.
Well, I'm sure there's
Healthy
good
eating.
arguments for big food as well.
The argument would be, and this is the
Look how
argument,
many people we're feeding.
how about this? I'll take it one step further and defend big food. Post the Great Depression and post World War II, we essentially were incentivized to make sure our people didn't starve. Plus our people overseas, right? So what did we do? We're going to make the fastest, cheapest food possible.
Yeah.
I don't believe Nestle. I don't believe Coke. I don't believe all these Procter & Gamble. I don't believe these companies intentionally were trying to be evil. Their evil behavior is a byproduct of originally trying to do something good, but the institution got corrupted. No
Okay.
different than religion.
Sure.
The religion's trying to do something good, but the institutions get corrupted.
Well, but you get all these. All right.
I'm not going to be able to change your mind on it today, and I don't plan on to.
Right.
But Ryan, I think the idea is to open your mind into thinking we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I'm not. I understand there's a lot of good things that come from religion or institutions, whatever. I understand there is.
See, religions or institutions, they're two separate fucking things, in my opinion.
But we would never have had one without the other. We would
I
never
agree,
had
true.
the. So
But that doesn't make them paralleled and synonymous in their overall essence. Meaning, religion isn't evil just because institution is
the
evil.
only reason why we have information on religion is because of these institutions,
Fair.
and they were written in by those institutions.
Fair. No-
So that's where it comes. So the reason why you don't think you can bang some dude's wife is because it was written down, because it's in there. That's
And
one
because
of
it's wrong. Because somebody's getting hurt. You're hurting somebody. You're hurting both the husband and the lady. You're hurting that marriage. You're hurting the kids.
Okay. But when we were a tribal species, that was happening all the time.
What was happening all the time?
Dudes were banging, 5 dudes were banging the same chick all the time, and they didn't know whose son that was, and so they all raised it together as one.
Well,
That wasn't bad then. Then
No,
then we start farming and coming up with this religion, and Farmer John's like, dude, I've got the hottest wife in the village.
No one's gonna touch her.
And if Mark fucks her, I
ain't getting
am
no grain.
gonna be pissed off. We got to find a way how that can't happen.
Well, I'm not gonna give him
because
corn.
I see her looking at Mark. Mark's got a 6-pack. I don't.
Right.
I just know how to make corn grow.
But that's where Ryan. That's where.
And so he came up. Well, it was okay. It was okay.
So
generation
you
ago.
think? So you think when the men were fucking the same girl and they didn't know who the babies was, that was good?
For the tribe,
You think that was good for the tribe, not knowing who the father is?
they all loved that child like it was their own.
All right, how long ago do you think that was?
Well, how long was the written Abraham? 6,000 years ago. So I'd say 7,000 years
So
ago.
it's really going to be 10,000 years ago.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm just saying.
I don't
when
think
we were tribal.
I think humans were more evil back then. If that's the case,
Well, they had to be.
right? So if you have religion,
But
creating parameters and structure to define what's good and evil, you'll
But
have
were
less
they-
evil.
was it necessarily evil? Like was when one
Yes,
tribe
because someone's
attacked-
getting hurt.
Okay, but was it protecting from more people getting hurt? Like
I think that's where the nuance of the specificity of the circumstances can be defined properly. But I still
we
think
had
there is a
real
loser and a
when-
or
when
a
tri-
good and a bad.
when tribes were fighting each other, I don't think it came evil until religion came involved, and then it became these religious wars.
But
So
you're
that's
not-
pretty evil.
But you're now disassociating religion with the tribal wars
I'm
pre-institution.
going human. I'm going Homo sapiens. What
You
are
don't
we?
think you don't think they believed in? I believe in, and this is what I kind of wrote about in the book. All of the shit we believe in now was a rudimentary form before we started farming. Once we were able to sit down in agriculture or sit down and farm through agriculture, we could articulate those same
Yeah,
thoughts.
that's because the betas got together. And wrote together.
Yeah, I don't gotta hunt no more. I can just think about shit.
That's right. I'm sick of Mark fucking all the women. I get his scraps. I want to get
I do believe though that even back then there was still defined good and evil. It's just there was more allowance for evil because good wasn't as defined. So once we sat down and thought about it a little more, it was easier to actually define it, which then gave structure to the actual belief system.
Well, it's interesting, but like, would it have been called good or evil back pre-religion times with some of that stuff?
Yeah, because they would have murdered somebody if they were stealing from the tribe. They would have known him stealing and taking it selfishly for himself is wrong. That's bad. We need to kill him.
But why is that bad? Because it's bad for the tribe. So it's good.
Right.
So it's good to kill him.
No, so
It's good to kill him because he's not hurting our tribe anymore. He did a bad thing by hurting the tribe. So
right. So I'm not
removing
against
him.
capital punishment. I think you should hang pedophiles.
I'm down with that.
I think you should hang rapists fundamentally.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I'm against capital punishment because in those instances, you're 100% right. There's still a defined good and evil, though. That's my point. There's still a defined good and evil. And if we lose track of that, we're going to be in a day and age where people think the sky is yellow because they feel it's yellow.
Are we naturally going to lose sight of that? Because when you look at all the numbers and all the statistics of the Christian faith specifically, but not necessarily just them, their numbers are dropping in church attendance and belief. Is that just kind of naturally? Is it going to go that way? And then...
Yeah, I think.
And then what? Is it going to bounce back, I guess?
I think there's going to be.
Then there's going to be some kind of... That's what's going to happen. That is. There's a pendulum. The pendulum swinging where
Back
the
and
faith
forth.
is getting... everyone's faith is getting diminished. And then there's going to be some religious figure, Trump-like, but not yet, but something like that can get a huge base. And he's going to be some second coming. Religion's fucking wild.
I think it's going to evolve, but again, the religion is separate from the fanaticism that the religion
Sure.
can breed, and I think the
But
fanaticism.
they're bringing that book with them.
I agree, and that's where you're not going to hear me shit, or you're not going to hear me talk shit about the or you're not going to hear me not talk shit about the institution. I will never defend the institution. I'm always going to defend the precepts surrounding the beliefs that the institution should be implementing.
I'm not anti-religion either. Like I don't care who believe whatever you want.
But that's where believe whatever you want. What if they want to believe that they can
I
do
don't-
evil shit?
Then you can believe that.
But as long as you don't act on it.
Right.
Okay, as long as we agree on that, because that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's the manifestation of those negative beliefs that aren't defined accurately, that once they act on that act, they go, but I think it's right. It's like, I don't give a fuck what you think is right. 2 + 2 is 4.
Mm-hmm.
We can define that, and if you say it's 5, you're literally wrong.
yeah.
Try building a bridge with the math of 2 + 2 = 5. See where it gets you.
Getting it in the water. Yeah, no, I've always said I don't care what you think. I care how you think.
I like that.
And that's why, like, I don't care if you believe that you have to believe in Jesus in order to go to this heaven. why do you like? How did you get there? And
Right.
I'm a good person. This is what it always. You know what I
100%.
mean? I like how
I like that a lot. That gives a lot more insight, I think, than just parroting their belief system if they can't even define it and articulate it as thoroughly as a Christian should be able to. It's like, don't tell me what you believe. Tell me why you got to the point of believing what you believe in so I can know more about you, not that blanket statement belief system that gives me no insight really about you as an individual.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
There's nuance to us human beings. I would have loved to have seen what we were like 8,000.
Right. I said, me too. And
I would have there's so many. I wish time machines were invented. There's so many. Like, I do want to go. Who was this Jesus guy?
Right.
Was he just doing? Like, was that all he was doing?
Right.
Like, was he doing magic tricks, or was he really like? Did he turn water into wine? Did
Right.
he, heal the blind? Did some?
And I believe,
You know what I mean?
I
Like-
believe those anecdotes are less important than the principles surrounding his Gnostic message.
Oh, this has not. I'm just curious. I
no.
want to go around. I want to see who this man Jesus was, and
Right.
actually be there at that time.
And the only thing I was playing off of that is
And
even
Moses. Moses is you know what? That's one of I've read the Bible. Exodus is a phenomenal story in the Bible. That shit's fun to read. There's some shit going on back then, man.
What I find beautiful about Exodus in particular is Moses never made it back to the Holy Land that he was promised. And it's because he fucked up and did something wrong that cursed God essentially by him striking a rock with a staff.
Yeah.
He got so mad at his own people, he acted like an impulsive human and did something wrong. And God said, because you did that, you're not going to make it to the Holy Land. All this shit you've been grinding for, you're now not going to get because of your impulsive action.
Yeah. The DMT's a motherfucker.
Him seeing the burning bush and shit.
All right. On that note, Mitchell, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to rob a few hours of your time from last time and this
Heck yeah.
time.
Yeah, I had a good time,
Appreciate
man. This
it,
is always
yeah.
a good conversation.
Yeah, this is fun, man.
We have a pretty good dynamic. I mean, you offer a unique perspective that you need to challenge people that have certain thoughts and perspectives. Like, you need to have the wherewithal to ask, but why? And nowadays, I don't get this opportunity to talk about somebody who's going to question ad infinitum to its most infinite degree certain concepts that even if we did take it to its infinite degree, we still wouldn't be able to come to a definitive answer.
Yeah, I'm always going to have questions. I'll never get it.
That's what it
I
means.
can't say I'll never get a definitive answer,
Right.
but I'm going to ask questions until I do.
At least something that resembles close to a definitive
Yeah,
answer.
if something I can get down with. That's
Right.
why I fuck with simulation theory the most.
Yeah, I fuck with the principles behind simulation theory, but if
Yeah.
we're actually into the nitty gritty of it, I think Matrix in and of itself, especially when he's talking to the architect, reveals some anomalies within that concept.
Oh yeah,
But that's
it's
not even
all
into it.
stories are the fucking
Right.
They're all,
You know that movie was based off of, I think, a book that was called,
it's all the fucking hero's journey is what all it is.
and that's why when we're talking about religion, the institution don't matter. It matters the wisdom behind it, which
Yeah.
a lot of it is that hero's journey.
Yeah, that's all. It's all life is, isn't it? At least you hope.
At least you hope. A good adventure with. You don't have to be square the whole way, but with some fun
No.
along the way.
Yeah.
Good adventure with some fun along the way.
Yep. All right, let's get the hell out of here.
Again,
This
I
is fun.
appreciate it. This is fun.
Anything you'd like to leave off with? Where people can find your book, your Instagram, if they want a consultation to get healthy, so they can, get their mind and body on the right track.
Yeah, so you can go to my website, sstfree.org, and it'll take you directly to my main landing page at selfsustainedtraining.com. They're essentially the exact same URL. They'll take you to the same spot. A lot of people, it's too hard for them to spell out selfsustainedtraining.com. So I made a domain that said sstfree.org. So if you go to my website, you can purchase any of the books. You can see the content that I make on YouTube. I have a YouTube, Self-Sustained Training. I have my Instagram on. You can find everything on my website, essentially. You can go to my contact page and reach out to me directly. You can send me an email at ceo@selfsustainedtraining.com. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to me directly on Instagram. Facebook is where I'm really popping right now. I've got 20,000
Nice.
followers on Facebook now.
Wow.
Yeah, and especially just with these past clips really going viral,
Nice.
talking about this shit,
Oh,
right?
shit, cool.
A lot of it was the Chron stuff, which is what's really cool. So yeah, you can follow me on Facebook at it should be the same at Self-Sustained Training, or you can just type in Mitchell Thompson. My Instagram is at mitch.thomson. Feel free to reach out to me directly on any of those platforms. Otherwise, you can go to my website and send me an email.
Beautiful. SST free. My .org.
.org, yes, sir.
My website is freestd.org.
That's not a real thing, is it?
Neanderthal Podcast. Bye.
Leave me the fuck alone. Neanderthal Hardest podcast in the world, you stupid ass bitch.